Chapter 262. Yu Ying's hand suddenly tightened, and his palm struck onto Wang Shuji's body, who could not resist at all. A black seal instantly appeared on his body, carrying a soul-devouring power. It instantly expanded, and the black mystic patterns on it were like sharp blades, heading straight towards his opponent's chest. Little wimp. Zhu Yao suddenly widened her eyes, as though she had returned to the time when Xiao Yi said that Wang Shuji was already dead. Her heart instantly stopped, and as though it was a conditioned reflex, she immediately activated a mystic art she had left in Little Wimp's divine sense. Seemingly at the same time, just as the black mystic patterns were about to pierce through Little Wimp, his figure shook, and the person surrounded by the black patterns instantly turned into Zhu Yao. The black demonic formation instantly struck her body, and the pain coming from her four limbs was something she had never experienced before. Big Sis Yao. Yu Ying was stunned on the spot. Yu Yao. Yu Yan exclaimed, and immediately summoned his own sword intent. A gigantic white dragon, carrying a pressure that filled the sky, charged straight towards the opposite side. Yu Ying was caught off guard for a moment, and was instantly sent flying several meters away. Yu Yan caught his heavily injured disciple, and even his palms could not help but tremble. Yu Yao, various white luster suddenly appeared around her body, and bit by bit, they were emitted from her body, and then, they disappeared without a trace. He channeled spiritual energy into her body, but it scattered the moment it entered her body. Yu Yan grew even more anxious. Earlier, the black formation Yu Ying cast should be targeted at souls. He had a premonition that if his disciple were to go this time, she would never be able to return. Big Sis Zhu Yao. Little Wimp held on to her hand, and his tears instantly flowed out. Form displacement. When did she leave such a mystic art in his divine sense? Master. Zhu Yao felt blood flowing out from the corner of her lips. Her entire body felt as though it was being pulled, as though it was about to be torn apart. Yu Ying. Big Sis Yao. Yu Ying stood 3 steps away from her with a blank look, as though he was denying something with all his might. Why? Is he really that important to you? To the point that you had to save him even at the cost of your soul scattering? Soul devouring. The mystic art he activated earlier could devour a person's soul. Just what did you do to Big Sis Zhu Yao? Wang Shuji crazily walked towards Yu Ying, grabbed onto his collar, and threw a punch at him. He took a punch and moved his fingers, fixing him in place. Suddenly, he laughed out loud. Soul devouring, good, good. From now on, Big Sister's soul and mine will become one, and we will never be separated. You. Wang Shuji was stunned. Her eyes were filled with despair. Yu Yan hurriedly cast an art. Mystic seals flew out one after another, restraining the black talismans circulating around her body and restraining her unstable soul. Zhu Yao could no longer feel anything in this world. Her entire body was being enveloped by pain, and with a single breath, she shouted out. Yu Ying. Come here. Yu Ying was startled for a moment, and only after a while did he obediently walk closer, stopping by her side. However, his eyes were completely lifeless. That's good too. Big Sister can finally accompany Yu Ying forever. He tried his best to express his happiness, but there was not a hint of happiness in his eyes. Zhu Yao clenched her fists. Using all of the strength in her body, she swung her hand over. Slap. A resounding slap landed on his face. Yu Ying. It's time for you to grow up. Big Sister Yao. He looked at her blankly, and his eyes were filled with madness that he had never seen before. Did you hit me because of Wang Shuji? As expected, Big Sister only has him in her eyes. Even a mystic art like form shifting, which requires a continuous consumption of divine sense, would remain in his divine sense as well. Form shifting, your divine sense, has it too? Ewing was startled, as he widened his eyes in disbelief. Reaching out his hand, he subconsciously touched his chest. As expected, he felt a strand of divine sense that did not belong to him in his body, and it seemed to have stayed there for a very long time. It should have happened much earlier than Wang Shuji. His eyes instantly flashed with panic, as he looked at her a little anxiously. Wasn't she going to abandon him? Zhu Yao lowered her voice, and said word by word. You have never been alone. No matter if it's in the past or now, you have never been alone. No one has abandoned you, the one who has truly abandoned you is yourself. Big sister. I only have big sister, do you still remember little radish? He was stunned. Though she saved Ewing, the one who had taken care of him since he was young, taught him mystic arts, and taught him everything, was actually little radish. He had always said that he was abandoned, and did not want to be abandoned by anyone again. He did not want to be alone. However, what did he think of little radish? It wasn't that no one had ever treated him sincerely, it was just that he was completely unable to see it. He had locked himself in a predetermined circle, and even if others took the initiative to take 99 steps, he would not be willing to take that step. He was only willing to follow her, and would go crazy the moment he left. How was he any different from a child who could not leave his parents? Ewing. Why are you never willing to grow up? Zhu Yao solemnly said. Don't lock yourself up again. Otherwise, I will never see you again for the rest of my life. Ewing was stunned. In the end, he could not help but reach out his hand to grab onto the corner of her robe. As though he was begging, he said. Don't. Big sister Yao, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Zhu Yao's vision was already turning blurry. This time was different from the past. She felt as though everything had returned to nothingness, and the words beside her ears felt as though they were illusions. Yu Yao. Yu Yan's expression paled. The black talismans on Zhu Yao's body had already deepened. Even the few talismans that were meant to stop him were being covered by those black talismans as well, and they were spreading towards her chest. Stop the formation, immediately. He turned to glare at Ewing at the side. However, he had a dazed look, as he muttered. It can't be stopped. This formation can't be stopped at all. With a flip of his hand, Yu Yan struck towards his chest. A white lightning dragon pierced through Yu Ying's body. What he used was a killing move, and he did not hold back in the slightest. However, even if that was the case, it had merely cleansed the devilic energy on Yu Ying's body a little, and caused him to be heavily injured. Right now, he really wanted to take his life immediately. However, his disciple's situation was worsening. He had no choice but to grit his teeth, and tried every single mystic art he could think of. Mystic arts, divine arts, sealing arts, and he even wanted to extract her soul, so that she could change her body in the future. However, it was all useless. The lustrous light emitted from his disciple's body grew more and more numerous. With every bit of lustrous light emitted, her soul would grow a little weaker. In the end, even the body he was hugging onto was beginning to turn transparent bit by bit. His eyes were crimson red, and a heart-piercing pain exploded from the depths of his heart. His disciple, the only disciple he had always held in his palm. There were even many things that he had yet to teach her, so how could she disappear just like that? Yu Yao. Wake up, don't disappear. Respond to her master. The lustrous light on her body grew even brighter, and just as those black talismans were about to gather at her chest, suddenly, those two perfectly straight rays of heavenly light of guidance, like searchlights, instantly changed directions, and shone towards Zhu Yao's direction. The lustrous light which was still constantly scattering earlier, crazily poured into Zhu Yao's body. Ting! Red words surfaced. Target has encountered an irresistible injury. Forced repatriation. In a blink of an eye, Zhu Yao's entire body emitted out an intense purple lustrous light, which filled the entire world. A thick voice sounded as though it came from beyond the 9 heavens. Yao Yao, friend, I'm sorry. When those words fell, the purple lustrous light suddenly retracted, and together with the person within the purple lustrous light, they disappeared from the spot, as though they had never existed. Yao Yao, wake up, wake up. A calm and indifferent voice resounded next to her ears. Zhu Yao felt her shoulder being pushed by someone, and when she opened her eyes, she saw a familiar and delicate face. Guogua. Zhu Yao sat up, yet she felt her entire body aching. She could not help but take a deep breath. Oh, my waist, hurts, hurts, hurts. You're sleeping on the table, how can it not hurt? Feng Guogua sighed, and passed her a cup of water. Why are you hiding at my place again? What did your Empress Dowager do to you this time? My Empress Dowager. Zhu Yao felt a little confused. Her mind was in a mess, and she was feeling a little pain from the swelling. After drinking a cup of water, she calmed herself down, and only then did she slowly recall everything. Ying, little wimp, master, she suddenly stood up and looked around. Why am I back? This development wasn't right. Even if she died, at the very most, she would just change into a different avatar. Why did Realm Spirit directly send her back? How should I know? Guoguo looked at her a little confusedly. No, I was originally in spiritual realm. I was about to ascend, but in the end. She blurted out an explanation. Guogua however reached out her hand to stroke her head, and said with a concerned tone. You're not having a fever, right? I already told you to quit that kind of job where you have to work day and night. Zhu Yao was startled. Could it be that those things were just a dream? She turned around to look at her own computer, only to see her half-written game event plan, and her QQ was even hanging next to it. Just as she was about to pull out Realm Spirit's QQ to ask him about it, she reached out her hand. Why are my mouse and keyboard gone? Enough, stop working. Do you have to work so hard? If you lost them, you can just buy another one. That's not right. Those were all real. She remembered that when she transmigrated, she was holding onto a mouse in her hand. It wasn't lost, but she had brought it to the cultivation world. Feng Guogua's phone suddenly rang. Hello, Auntie. I'm Guogua. Right, I'm back from my vacation. Yao Yao, she's not here. She probably went to work. She often works overtime on Saturdays. She turned to look at Zhu Yao, and made a shushing gesture. It's a call from your Empress Dowager. I'll cover for you. Before she could even finish, Zhu Yao, for the first time, snatched her phone. Mom, in an instant, longing, grievances, and heartache came crashing down, causing her to really want to see the person on the other side of the phone. Her voice could not help but choke. Damn brat, you finally picked up my call. A familiar voice sounded from the other side of the phone. I'm telling you, if you don't come home soon, I'll skin you up. Mom. The sourness in the depths of her heart gushed out. Mom, I miss you. The person on the other side of the phone paused for a moment, as though she was a little surprised. A moment later, she softly said. What's wrong? Did you feel wronged at work? You're already an adult, yet you're still acting spoiled to your mom. No. Nothing, I just miss you. Forget it. If you really don't want to go on a blind date, Mom won't force you. Come home when you're free. Amen. I'll be back soon. Alright. Zhu Yao continued to chat for a little longer, before reluctantly hanging up the phone. It had been a long time since she heard her family's voice. Guoguo looked at Zhu Yao a little strangely. Your mom is calling you home for dinner. Emin. Why are you suddenly not afraid of your Empress Dowager? She's my mom. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Those distant memories instantly returned to her mind, and they became bright and clear. Her mom was a typical idle old lady. When she had nothing to do after her retirement, she loved to urge her children on their marriage matters. However, her family seemed to have no affinity with the opposite sex. Her brother and herself, one was already 30 years old, while the other was 28, and both of them were still single. Zhu Yao could already imagine the pile of handsome young men waiting for her when she returned. All right, it's good that you've thought it through. It's about time for you to find a partner as well. Guoguo looked as though she was thinking for her own good, and said with a heavy tone. You're not young anymore. If you keep staying at my place, it won't be easy for me to find someone to rent with. You just want to chase me away, right? It's not like this old lady didn't pay you rent. I'm not careful when making friends. Speaking of which, you're still a year older than me, right? What qualifications do you have to talk about me, hey? I'm different from you. Zhu Yao took a step forward. How are you different? Other than her breasts, which part of her body was different? I have money. Poor bastard. She got shot. Speaking of Feng Guoguo, her entire life was like a legend. They were classmates since elementary school, and they were best friends. However, she was an orphan and relied on the government to study in university. After she became an adult, she was then found by her family's lawyer. At that time, her relatives had already passed away for many years, and they did not leave anything behind, other than money. It was said that the number of zeros in her bank account could be counted to the point of cramping. This apartment she was renting was hers. Zhu Yao had her own apartment as well, however, it had just been renovated, so she needed to air it out for a period of time. And because of the Empress Dowager's matchmaking arrangements, she did not want to move even more. Forget it, I'm not going to compete with you in terms of money. In any case, she couldn't. Oh right, why are you back so soon? Didn't you say you're going to be gone for half a month? Looking at the time on the computer, only a week had passed, right? A strange look flashed past Guoguo's face, as though she had thought of something she could not understand. Suddenly, she asked out of nowhere. Yao Yao, do you believe that mermaids exist in this world? Ah! Zhu Yao was startled. She reached out her hand to touch her forehead. You can't have transmigrated as well, right? She slapped her hand away. You're speaking as though you've transmigrated before. She had really transmigrated before. Forget it, it's better if you think about where you can find a man to kidnap back home and explain to your Empress Dowager. After saying that, she walked out of the room. The room instantly quietened down. Zhu Yao fell onto the bed. The matters in the other world flashed past her eyes like a lantern, and her heart throbbed with pain. Master. Would she be able to see him again? Chapter 263. Yao Yao. Empress Dowager Zhu stuck her head out from the kitchen, raised the bottle in her hand, and said, There's no more soy sauce at home, go downstairs and buy a bottle. Oh. Zhu Yao responded, changed her shoes, and left the room. Isn't this Yao Yao? Just as he reached the staircase, an auntie walked towards him. Aunt Chin. Her house was in a relatively old neighborhood, surrounded by old neighbors who had lived for decades, so they were very familiar with each other. The auntie nodded, and asked with a smile. Yao Yao, when did you come back? How many days off? Do you have a boyfriend? When do you plan to get married? Ah. Zhu Yao had an awkward look, and changed the topic. Aunt Chin, my mom is cooking and waiting for me to buy soy sauce. I'll talk to you when I get back. Oh. Only then did she nod her head and take a step back. Suddenly, she recalled something, and instructed. Oh right, Yao Yao, you have to be careful when you head out. I just heard that there was a strange person at the entrance of the district. He was dressed in a strange outfit, and he had been standing there for an entire day. Thank you, Auntie Chin. I will be heading downstairs to the junk shop, nothing will happen. Zhu Yao replied, and then, she hurriedly went downstairs, afraid that Auntie Chin would stop her for a heart-to-heart talk again. Auntie Chin faintly sighed from behind, sigh, youngsters nowadays. Instead of learning from the good, you insist on creating such strange things. Zhu Yao did not mind either, as she headed straight for the junk shop downstairs. It was currently lunchtime, yet, unexpectedly, there was a group of people gathered in the shop. She lowered her head to find the soy sauce and paid for it. However, she heard a few people at the door discussing something. That person can't be a bad person, right? I heard that there are madmen who often kill people outside. How can he be a bad person with that kind of appearance, although his clothes are a bit strange? That's not necessarily true. You can't judge a book by its cover. A good-looking person can also be a bad person. This is a society that values appearance. As long as you have a face, anything can be forgiven. That person is wearing an ancient costume and doesn't speak. He's just standing there like a fool. Is he mute? I don't think so. Didn't the guard, Shaoli, say that the person is looking for someone? It's just that I don't have an access card and I don't know which building she lives in, so I'm standing at the entrance. Oh. Then who is he looking for? I think his surname is Yu. Yu. You something. Zhu Yao's heart trembled, as she fiercely turned to look at them. Where's the person you're talking about? The few of them looked at her curiously and pointed to the right. It's at the entrance of the estate. Zhu Yao immediately charged out, and sprinted towards the entrance of the small district. From afar, she could see a large group of people gathered there. Everyone was pointing at the center and discussing amongst themselves. There were even people who took out their phones, and were taking photos. In the middle of the crowd, a man in white was watching all of this coldly. His expression was ice-cold, and he forcibly created a 3-meter vacuum zone around him. The soy sauce in Zhu Yao's hand fell onto the ground. She was simply unable to believe her own eyes. Master, Miss Zhu, you're back. The guard, Shaoli, waved at her and followed her gaze. Why? Do you know that weirdo? Zhu Yao's eyes reddened, as she nodded heavily. She raised her voice and shouted. Master! Master! What master? A taxi driver. Shaoli was startled. Dressed in ancient attire to pick up passengers, drivers nowadays were pretty hard-working. Just as Shaoli was about to clarify, Zhu Yao had already charged into the crowd, barged into the vacuum zone, and hugged onto that snow-white robe. Master! The person in front of her was startled for a moment, and then instantly hugged her back tightly. A familiar voice resounded next to her ears, carrying a hint of a sigh and a sense of relief. Yu Yao, I found you. Even in her dreams, she had never expected that her master would come to the modern era as well. Even now, she was still a little doubtful that all of this was real. She carefully pulled his hand, touched his face, and then pulled, and then rubbed, and then, Yu Yao. Yu Yan pulled down her weird hand. It's me. Master. She was simply so happy that she wanted to cry, all right. She searched for Realm Spirit on QQ for an entire day, but she did not know why, but that QQ number never lit up again, showing that he was offline. If not for the fact that she still had the QQ chat records, she would have suspected if she had known such an online friend, and had experienced those inconceivable things. Regarding whether she would be able to see her master again, she was becoming more and more uncertain. However, in the blink of an eye, he was standing right in front of her, perfectly fine. The discussions in the surroundings grew louder, and after curiously sizing up the two of them, Zhu Yao finally regained her senses. Suddenly, she recalled that her master was definitely an unregistered resident here. In order to prevent the news from appearing tomorrow, there would be a shocking news of a man dressed in a strange outfit at the entrance of a small residential area. She immediately changed her words. "Why did you rush over right after you finished filming? You gave me a fright. Let's go in first." Only then did the surrounding crowd come to a realization. So he's an actor. However, this production crew is a little too rich, right? That hairstyle, that costume, it's simply the conscience of the industry. Zhu Yao took the opportunity to pull him, sprinted all the way back to her own house, and heavily closed the door. "Why are you so slow?" The Empress Dowager walked out of the kitchen, holding onto a potato in her hand. However, in the instant she raised her head, it fell onto the ground with a plop. Crap, she forgot that there were still two great gods at home. The Empress Dowager took a deep breath, turned her head, and roared towards the living room. "Her father, hurry and come." Yao Yao brought a man back. "What?" A cry of surprise resounded from the living room. In the blink of an eye, a middle-aged man rushed out with a broom in hand, emitting a murderous aura. "Zhu Yao." "Dad. Are they going to fight? What are you doing?" Empress Dowager Yang had already snatched the broom from his hands, and glared at him. Yao Yao only brought a man back after 28 years, what if he ran away in fright? As she said that, she looked at her daughter with a warm expression. "Yao Yao, why did you suddenly become enlightened after a short trip out? This is..." The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. "Buying soy sauce, a gift? What nonsense are you spouting?" The Empress Dowager raised her hand and slapped the back of her head. She then lowered her head to look at her hand. "Where's the soy sauce? It just fell off." "Forget it, hurry and come in." The Empress Dowager waved at the two of them and passionately welcomed them in. She even picked up the potato on the ground. She wondered if they would make it in time if they ran out now. She wondered if every girl, when bringing their boyfriends home, would experience a tripartite interrogation. In a single meal, Madame Yang wished that she could dig out 18 generations of information about their ancestors. The main point was that a certain master didn't have an enlightened personality, and he completely had no experience in matters like meeting parents. However, from the moment he entered the door, he could guess that the two people in front of him were his disciples' parents. As for how to interact with his disciples' parents, his master had never taught him before. "Mister, what's your name?" The Empress Dowager smiled with an amiable expression. "Yu Yan." Yu Yan replied. "Your surname is Yu, huh? This surname is very rare. Where do you work?" The Empress Dowager continued to ask. Yu Yan blurted out. "I'm from Jade Forest Mountain, Jade Forest Mountain Industry Group." Zhu Yao immediately interrupted. "Mom, he's engaged in a job related to nature." "Oh." Madame Yang nodded. "Then what do you do?" Yu Yan replied with a serious expression. "I train in lightning, electricity energy collection and utilization." Zhu Yao's forehead was filled with cold sweat. "Ho ho, Mom, it's related to the research of new energy. You haven't heard of it before." "Oh." As expected, Madame Yang's face was blank. It sounded rather high and mighty. "Then what's your current position in the company?" "Position?" Yu Yan pondered for a moment. He was talking about his cultivation. I'm currently the upper leader. Zhu Yao continued to interrupt. Mom, he's very amazing. In his company, other than the boss, no one else has a higher position than him. I'm asking him, not you. Madame Yang glared at her, expressing her dissatisfaction with her interrupting. Zhu Yao wanted to cry, but no tears came out. How could she not interrupt? For someone like her master who was naturally naive, naturally adorable, and never knew what lying was, if he were to continue speaking the truth, it would be strange if he wasn't treated as a lunatic. Hence, this dinner ended with Zhu Yao's appropriate forceful interruption, with them asking and answering questions. Madame Yang had also asked about his work and family in the beginning, all the way to when he was planning to get married, how many children he would have, and so on. Zhu Yao simply used the excuse that she still had a lot of work to do in the company, and pulled her master back to a city. This time, she had no choice but to move to the new house that she had long renovated. Student Feng Guogua, who had been staying in the guest room for a year, suddenly thought things through, sent her a congratulatory message, and even asked with an especially serious tone. Are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital to do a full body checkup, or do a neurological consultation or something? It was as though their friendship was about to end at any moment. After busying herself for an entire day, she finally dragged her master back to his nest. Pui, she brought him home. Thinking about her job, husband, and warm bed, it was basically the peak of her life. What's wrong? This is the world you live in. With the serious attitude of an academic researcher, Yu Yan sized up his disciple's little nest, and discovered many mystic tools that he had never seen before. Strangely, he completely did not sense the circulation of spiritual energy. Master, Emin. If you dismantle it again, that alarm clock will be disconnected. Before she could even finish, the alarm clock in Yu Yan's hand, with a "pa" sound, shattered into pieces. One after another, the gears fell from above, and rolled all over the ground. Yu Yan. He had never seen such a fragile mystic tool. Zhu Yao. Alright, she could still afford to pay for an alarm clock, as long as he didn't dismantle it. Master, what are you doing? Hurry and let go of that television. That was the latest 50-inch LCD model that cost over 10,000 RMB. That white figure blanked for a moment, and then, he slowly retracted his hand. He was simply curious as to why his disciple wanted to embed a pitch-black rock into the wall, and it looked so smooth as well. Could it be? Is this a glazed rock? No, that's a television. What's a television? A television is an information receiving terminal. The signal received from a satellite, after being transmitted over, would be restored into images and sounds. What's information? And what's a satellite? This matter is very complicated. In any case, people first record a performance or something that happens. Then, it would be converted into various erasure signals, and then, through the satellite, it would be transmitted to a machine like this, allowing thousands of households to see it. And what's filming? Are you 100,000 wise? Zhu Yao simply pressed a button on a controller, and the television instantly lit up. It was currently playing the latest episode of Where Do You Go? Yu Yan stared at it for a moment, before nodding with an understanding look. So it's a voice recording rock. Why did she feel that the quality of a television that was worth tens of thousands of dollars had instantly dropped? To be able to record sounds and images, if it's not a voice recording rock, then what is it? Alright, voice recording rock. Then, it shall be a voice recording rock. Then, he walked to the right. What's this? Refrigerator. No, it's a large-scale ice-type mystic artifact, the first-rank kind. What about this? This is a flame stone, 3rd rank. Induction cooker. What's this at the side? This is a 2nd rank mystic artifact fused with a water-type dirt removal art. Washing machine. What do you have with you? This is a multi-purpose voice transmission talisman. Phone. Only then did Yu Yan nod. The mystic arts of this world are all of such low grade. Yes. Once she learned how to smash a broken pot, she realized that the world had suddenly brightened up. What's on the table? This one's amazing. This is a heavenly book, and it records most of the knowledge of this world. Laptop. Of course, there's even more entertainment information. As long as you want to understand it, you can find it inside. After Yu Yan was done with his curiosity, he turned around and walked back, sitting on the sofa next to her. Probably because he felt that it was too soft, he moved a little uncomfortably. Pulling up her hand, he interlocked their fingers, and firmly held onto it. Did anything strange happen after you returned? Zhu Yao shook her head. No. Oh right, Master, how did you come here? I don't know either. He frowned. When your body was injured by Yu Ying's soul-devouring devil formation, your master used all sorts of methods, yet, I was still unable to restrain your soul that was about to dissipate. His hands suddenly tightened, a hint of anger flashed in the center of his brows. Master, Zhu Yao called out to him, and only then did he react. Reaching out his hand, he stroked his disciple's head, and conveniently pulled her into his embrace. Only then did that restless heart of his slowly regain its calmness. After that, the heavenly light of guidance deviated from its original position, and struck your body. Your master simply remembers that there seemed to be a force that broke through the void, and the two of us were drawn into it. After that, I sensed your presence in front of that building. Back then, Zhu Yao had already fainted, and basically did not see the situation her master was talking about. When she regained consciousness, she was already at Guoguo's place, sitting in front of the computer just like before she transmigrated. Yu Yao. As though he recalled something, he frowned and reminded her. Before entering this place, I seemed to have heard someone apologizing to you. That voice seemed to contain the power of the heavenly Tao. Apologizing? Could it be a realm spirit? Why was he apologizing to her? Chapter 264. This person is the one who resurrected you countless times. Yu Yan coldly stared at the word realm spirit. His eyes looked as though they were about to condense into ice, and a mystic art seemed to be forming in his hands. Don't, Master. Zhu Yao grabbed onto his hand, and said seriously. This is just a voice transmission talisman he sent me, it's not him personally. Master, don't be rash. Only then did he put down his hand, but he subconsciously hugged her a little tighter. Are you able to find out where this voice transmission talisman came from? Where else could it be? Of course, it's another Q. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao was startled. She suddenly recalled that even QQ would have a login address. As long as she could find the other party's IP, Master, I know how to find him. She opened her colleague's technology group, and it was completely gray. Because it was the weekend, not a single Q was alive. She immediately took out her phone, found a colleague's number, and dialed it. The phone rang for a few dozen times, yet, no one picked it up. Yo, this bunch of people, they're rebelling. She immediately typed out a message, you have 1 minute to call me back. If not, your annual leave qualifications will be permanently revoked. The moment the message was sent, her phone rang in less than 5 seconds. I knew this guy was pretending to be dead. Hey, rat. Boss. A sobbing voice sounded. Do you have to be so heartless? Today's the weekend, please let me go. If I were to return to work overtime now, my girlfriend would kill me. For my lifelong happiness, boss, please be merciful. Shut up, what are you talking about? Zhu Yao's expression darkened. Was she that heartless? In the past, she would at most ask him to work overtime, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a month. It wasn't serious at all. I'm looking for you because I need your help, not overtime. Rat was startled, and instantly became spirited. Boss, tell me. As long as it's not overtime, Rat will climb a mountain of blades and dive into a sea of flames for you. I will definitely not hesitate. I will give my all until my death. Do you have a computer nearby? I do. Help me check QQ, the most recent IP, and find out the exact location of this IP. Zhu Yao reported Realm Spirit's QQ, that's it. Mouse said in a relaxed tone, don't worry, give me 5 minutes, and I'll quickly find you. No, find out. Do you want to give me a complimentary gift? You can hack the other party's computer and plant hundreds of viruses or something. What's with this vengeful tone? A series of banging sounds came from the other side. This IP address. He lowered his voice. Sunshine Neighborhood, Block 11. Boss, this is your address, right? Gugua's neighborhood. Gugua's neighborhood. How could it be there? She suddenly felt a chill down her spine. It couldn't be that strange, right? Ha! Why are these addresses? Mouse suddenly cried out in surprise. His voice immediately carried a hint of complaint. Boss, you aren't messing with me, are you? I checked the QQ registration record. The basic login address was in 2 places. One of them is the neighborhood you rented, and the other one is the company's address. Based on this time, it matches your work and rest schedule, boss. This can't be your Smurf account, right? Mouse wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Boss, I understand the feelings of a single young woman like you, but I'm just going out for a vacation with my girlfriend. Don't attack the feelings of lovers like this, right? It's still too early for Valentine's Day. Scram. Zhu Yao's voice sank. This old lady has already left the group, alright? Send me the IP information and then, you can rest in peace. Alright. Mouse hung up the phone. A moment later, his QQ vibrated a few times, and a picture was sent over. As expected, just like what Mouse said, most of them were her family and company's IPs. Even the login time was exactly the same. Why did she feel a little afraid? The numbers here, are they dates? Yu Yan suddenly pointed to the last record and asked. This is the date. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao suddenly widened her eyes. July 19th. Isn't that today, 23:14? Zhu Yao turned to look at the time below the computer, and was stunned. Wasn't that now? She pulled out Realm Spirit's QQ and saw that it was still grayed out. In an instant, a wave of anger surged out. She immediately sent a message over. Zhu Yao, Realm Spirit, get the hell out here. I know you're here. You're actually playing this invisibility game with me. There was no response from the other side. Zhu Yao, I'll give you 3 minutes to reply, otherwise, I will smash the computer. To be able to be at the same IP as her, and the time was exactly the same, there could only be one possibility. Realm Spirit was not hiding in a certain place, but was inside this computer. Zhu Yao, 3, Zhu Yao, 2, Realm Spirit, what happened to the promised 3 minutes? Why did it become 3 seconds? Zhu Yao smiled. He finally came out. Realm Spirit, young maiden, you're too dishonest. You actually deceived my young heart. Zhu Yao, young maiden. Tell me honestly, what's going on here? Realm Spirit, isn't it because of our pure friendship? You were injured by the soul devourer, and if I don't send you back, your soul will scatter. Even if it's me, I can't resurrect the soul of a foreign world after it dissipates. So she was actually in such a dangerous situation earlier. Zhu Yao turned to look at her master next to her, and immediately opened the voice communication channel. The other side paused for a moment, and a moment later, it connected. Young maiden. Realm Spirit's voice sounded from the computer, and it faintly carried a hint of an electric current. You don't know how difficult it was to send you back. You. Then what's going on with my master? Zhu Yao asked. Why did he come over as well? His voice paused for a moment, and then instantly changed into his cheap style. I don't mind such details. There's a limit to how long this dimensional space can be opened, so a little mistake is completely understandable. Just treat it as buy one get one free. Why did she feel like she was being treated as a commodity? Then, you're saying, we still have to return. Of course, young maiden. This is just a temporary holiday. Once your soul has completely stabilized, the heavy responsibility of saving the world is still waiting for you. Could it be that young maiden doesn't want to return? Zhu Yao sank into silence. She really did not know. She was not an ambitious person in the first place, and had never felt that she should do something earth-shattering. Other than feelings, she really could not find a place in that cultivation world that was better than her original world. Although the people here were selfish as well, and had various bad habits, and there were even people who committed murder and arson, and were deranged people. But similarly, there were also various kinds of good people. As someone who grew up under the red flag, she believed that there were still many good people in this world. Unlike the cultivation world, young maiden, don't be like this. You said that you would help me. This was just an accident. At the very most, I will give you a 2,000-word self-reflection letter. 3,000 is fine too. Don't give up, dear. A white hole and a white tomorrow are waiting for you. Even if you don't return, your master will still return, right? Zhu Yao was startled. She turned to look at the calm person behind her. Master, Yu Yan tightened his grip on her waist, and pressed his forehead against the top of her head. Don't worry. If you don't wish to leave, your master will accompany you. She was instantly moved. Her chest was filled with emotions, as though they were about to burst out. As expected of a good boyfriend of the nation. Young maiden. You can't have the opposite sex. You're inhumane. Realm Spirit wailed. My world cannot be without you. Scram. This old lady doesn't want to live in your world. I'm speaking the truth. You've seen it for yourself. Those worlds are all on the verge of collapse. His voice that had always been off the rails, carried a heaviness that had never been heard before. If this continues, the worlds will crumble one by one, and in the end, they will only welcome destruction. Only you can help me. It's not that I don't want to help you. But you've seen it for yourself. No matter which world it is, there are massacres and conspiracies everywhere. In fact, all practitioners view killing and stealing treasures as something normal, as though as long as they can raise their own cultivation and ascend, everything is right. She let out a deep sigh, and said seriously. Realm Spirit, I've wanted to ask you this since a long time ago. The so-called cultivation of that world, what exactly are they cultivating? What kind of path does the heavenly Tao walk? Why are those people who kill countless people able to enjoy long lives? And good people like Girling Luo, in the end, do not have a good ending, and even have to be implicated in their next life. Could it be that the so-called heavenly Tao is the Tao of massacres? I can't understand it. In the world I live in, there's nothing more precious than life. To us, killing is something extremely terrifying, and something that cannot be forgiven or pardoned. However, in the eyes of the majority of practitioners in that world, this has already become a daily occurrence. They're both lives, so why is it that this world is more important than anything else, while the other world treats it so lightly? Instead, the so-called kindness and tolerance are looked down upon by the people of the world. Realm Spirit, don't you feel that there's a huge problem with this world? No matter if it's Xiao Yi or Yi Ling, no matter how extreme their thoughts are, in the end, they're still affected by that world. If the world is like this, then in the future, there will similarly be another bug that can destroy the world. Girling Luo is right. The true devil isn't the devil race, but in the hearts of all practitioners. Realm Spirit, if we're talking about bugs, the true bug is the heavenly Tao that created and allowed everything to happen. If we were to view the three realms as a game, the problem lies in the main engine. No matter how well all of the secondary programs are fixed, they would not be able to stop the entire game from collapsing. Realm Spirit, what do you want me to fix? The heavenly Tao. He sank into silence for a moment. Then, his voice suddenly sank, and he said word by word. What if the heavenly Tao can be modified? When Realm Spirit said that the heavenly Tao could be modified, Zhu Yao expressed her doubts. Did he really think it was a game that could be reprogrammed? In the end, she still did not agree to Realm Spirit's request, but he did not seem to be in a rush either. Young maiden, you can slowly consider it. Perhaps, one day, when you're bored, you might want to come over and take a look. Was he treating transmigration as a vacation? If he wanted to go over, he could just go over. Zhu Yao ignored him and immediately turned off the computer. However, she could faintly see through his intentions. It seemed like if she did not agree, Realm Spirit would not be able to force her to return. Regarding Xiao Bai's matter, she had asked Realm Spirit about it as well. Wang Shuji was indeed a part of Xiao Bai. Back then, when Xiao Bai entered the world crossing door, he was split into two. One part was Yu Ying, while the other part was Wang Shuji. However, the part that belonged to Yu Ying was merely a soul, and only after wandering in the underworld for many years did he have the ability to reincarnate. As for the other part, due to the phoenix's original body, he did not die. Hence, the ruins of Ying Luo's world were created. The moment Xiao Bai realized she opened the world-crossing door, he had already fallen into a devil's path. However, because his soul was split into two, his devilish nature was greatly reduced, and he regained his rationality. Hence, he forced out all of the devilish nature in his body, and sealed it within the ruins. It could be said that the devil girl Ying Luo destroyed in the end, was actually a part of Xiao Bai's devilish nature that was sealed away. This was also the reason why Wang Shuji was not a devil, while Yu Ying was. Zhu Yao felt a little stuffy in her heart. No matter what, she was unable to see Wang Shuji and Yu Ying as the same person. Although the two of them belonged to the same soul, they were two completely different parts. Just like how she would never be able to see the two of them as Xiao Bai. Wang Shuji was upright and cheerful, just like the little brother next door. Yu Ying was stubborn and extreme, just like an autistic child. Although she was worried about the two of them, she indeed did not make any preparations to return to that world. She did not have any plans to continue using that laptop either, and bought a new one. Ever since she returned, she applied for half a month of leave from the company, and used this period of time to cram her master's knowledge about this world. As expected of a genius, her master was able to learn everything as fast as a rocket. Adding that he carried 120% passion towards everything in this world in the first place, although he still had that unchanging iceberg face, as long as he saw something new, his pair of eyes would light up like light bulbs, and his face would be filled with a thirst for knowledge. The question had already risen from what this was, to the specific operating principles. Who the hell knew how refrigerators were kept cool, and how televisions were displayed. Her master was definitely a technology geek, right? Hence, a week later, she decided to first head to the company to cancel her leave. Before she left, she repeatedly instructed her master to eliminate all the hidden dangers, and only then did she reluctantly leave. The moment she stepped out of the door, she could not help but turn her head back. Grabbing onto her master's hand, she said with sincerity, "Master, promise me, just like Howard Kong promised Siwei, before I return, don't dismantle the television in the house, all right?" Yu Yan was startled for a moment. He turned to look at the sound recording stone in the house called the television. The tip of his fingers moved a little, sighed, and nodded. This sound recording stone seemed to be very important to his disciple, then let's keep it. Chapter 265. Zhu Yao walked all the way downstairs, and subconsciously cast an art to fly her sword. Only then did she remember that she had already returned. Embarrassed, she silently took out her car keys and walked through her second-hand car. She stumbled along the way. She hadn't driven for a long time, so her speed was like a tortoise's crawl. The car behind her honked all the way to the company. As expected, he was late. The online game company she worked for was rather lenient towards its employees. Being a few minutes late wouldn't result in a deduction of wages. She followed her memory and went directly to the Human Resource Department to cancel her leave. When he returned to the Planning Department, as soon as he entered the door, he saw the fat cat lying on the cabinet next to him. Since young, Zhu Yao had never been liked by animals. Back then, when she was living in her hometown, she would often be chased by her neighbors' dogs for a few streets when she returned home from school. Given the title, Crazy Dog. Well, the dogs go crazy when they see her. He had been bitten countless times by cats and dogs when he was young. Therefore, she developed the habit of automatically retreating when she saw furry animals. Today, he didn't know why, but for some reason, he looked at Fat Cat again. Thinking back to the days when she was in the cultivation world, when she was chased after by all kinds of beasts, and that heaven-defying world favorability degree, maybe, her strange physique had improved. Zhu Yao's heart heated up. He couldn't help but want to try it out. It weakly stretched out a paw towards the fat cat. Meow meow. Come, let me touch you. The strange thing was that the fat cat did not resist, nor did it walk away. Instead, he squinted his eyes and rubbed against her hand. It worked, it really worked. Zhu Yao had an excited look. Just as she was about to touch the fat cat's head, the cat suddenly opened its mouth and bit her hand. Alright, as expected, it was useless. That was why she hated small animals the most. Ouch, 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 boss, why did you provoke this fat cat for no reason? Housie walked over and looked at her as if she was an idiot. You get scratched by this cat 5 times a month, and you still dare to touch it. You're really brave. Enough nonsense. Zhu Yao glared at him. Hurry up and think of a way to make it loosen its grip. My hand is about to break. Okay. Mouse readily agreed and then lightly patted the cat's head. Meow. That damned fat cat immediately let go and rubbed against his palm with a satisfied expression, acting cute and spoiled. Damn, this perverted cat that valued men over women. Zhu Yao hurriedly took a few steps back. It's bleeding. Rat picked up fat cat with one hand, and pointed at her hand with the other. There's medicine in the lounge, you should deal with it. You'd better get an injection or something. Amen, Zhu Yao nodded. Sigh, I don't know what the boss is thinking. He knows that you are afraid of animals, but he still wants everyone to have cats. Her company had an unreliable boss who often came up with inexplicable policies. This cat was one of them. A year ago, the boss, for some reason, insisted on giving a cat to every department, saying that it was a lucky charm. This one in their department was the fattest and most overbearing one. When it first arrived, every colleague in the department had been scratched by it. Later on, after he had matured, he treated others a little better, except for Zhu Yao. She hurriedly cleaned her wound, and realized that it was just a scratch on the skin. It was not a big deal, so she casually stuck on a band-aid, and prepared to return to work. However, she realized that the boss was currently waiting in her office, carrying that fat cat in his hands. Zhu Yao had the urge to rush out of the door. "Yao Yao, you're here." The person on the chair picked up a cat's paw and waved it at her, with a smile on his face. "Fatty, why are you here again?" Zhu Yao glared at him. It's because you haven't been to work for a week, and I missed you." Fatty threw her a coquettish look, and the fat on his face trembled. Zhu Yao could not be bothered with this damned Fatty, and turned to pour herself a cup of water. "If you have something to say, hurry up and say it." "Ho ho, I do indeed have something important to tell you." He pointed to the chair in front of him, hinting her to sit down. Zhu Yao glanced at him. "Fine, throw the cat out first." Fatty had a conflicted look. He stroked the pet that felt extremely good to the touch, stood up with a reluctant look, and carried the cat out. "Meow meow, this emperor will come and pamper you in a while." "Yao yao." Fatty sat back on the chair. "Actually, it's nothing much. It's just that during the time you were on leave, I made a huge decision." "What decision?" Zhu Yao sat down. Fatty scratched his head, and chuckled. "Actually, it's nothing much. It's just that for the company's future, I need to make some technical adjustments." "Amen. I'm selling the company." "Pooh." Zhu Yao instantly sprayed a mouthful of water onto his face, and then smashed the cup onto the table. "What did you say?" "Fatty, you, say it again if you dare." Calm down, calm down." Fatty stood up, and fanned her with the folder on the table. "How am I supposed to calm down?" Zhu Yao's fury instantly charged out. Although the company belonged to Fatty, the games operated by the company were all built up by them bit by bit. Now that the situation was so good, he actually sold it just like that. "Fatty, you, do you believe that I won't kick you?" "Oh." Fatty dodged to the side. "Let me finish. It's precisely because the prospects of our company's games are good, that's why we're taking this opportunity to sell them at such a high price." "Yao Yao, you should know as well that although this game company belongs to the corporation itself deals in real estate. No matter how well we do with the internet, we won't be able to develop too much. Why don't we accept the corporation's suggestion and merge with the internet giant? We're still making games, so there's no difference to you. It's just that the boss has changed." Zhu Yao calmed down. Fatty's words were not without reason. However, after being in the business for so many years, to suddenly be sold, she still felt a little indignant in her heart. "Never mind, I don't understand matters regarding operations. Since you've sold it, then so be it." Fatty was a little surprised that she would actually extinguish her anger so easily. Seeing that she no longer looked like she was going to flare up again, he heaved a sigh of relief. "Oh right, the new company will soon have a general manager who will take over my position. I'll be returning to my hometown tomorrow." "Oh." Zhu Yao nodded. Fatty's face instantly sank. "In any case, we're old classmates. Before you leave, don't you have anything to say to me? The sooner you die, the sooner you can reincarnate. Reincarnate properly, and become a new person." "Oh, right. Fatty, you, those cats in the company, I will have my colleagues send them back to your house. I'm called you Ban Ban." Why had she never called him correctly since she was young? It's about time. In any case, they're all so effeminate. What a careless choice of friends. Probably because she had transmigrated once, Zhu Yao's stubbornness towards the company had weakened quite a bit. Back then, she had simply pulled a few companions along, created a few small games, and established an unknown little company. Later on, she met her old classmate, Fatty Yu, a rich second generation, and sold the company to him. With the funds, she would slowly expand the company. Now that Fatty Yu wanted to sell it, as an employee, she indeed could not say anything. Although Fatty was unreliable, his business acumen was still pretty good. Although he felt that it was good to sell it, naturally, he had his reasons. After thinking it through, the indignant thoughts in the depths of Zhu Yao's heart were all gone. Currently, most of the people in the company were working on the handover. As the planner, she was temporarily free. Hence, since she had nothing to do, she left early. Her master was still at home, and she couldn't help but feel worried. Although she had taught him quite a few things in the past few days, she could not help but worry. He would be fine if she left him at home alone, right? What if he accidentally got electrocuted? What if he turned on the gas but did not switch it off? What if someone came to check the water meter? The more she thought about it, the more worried she became. Hence, after bidding farewell to Fatty, she hurriedly left early and returned home. Along the way, she even paid attention to her surroundings, afraid that she would hear any unexpected news. Fortunately, she returned home safely. Carrying a nervous heart, she opened the door, only to see a certain master, quietly sitting on a chair. He had already changed into a modern attire. He wore a white shirt and black trousers. She really could not bear to cut his silky black hair, so she combed it into a bundle and tied it behind his back. The sunlight shone on his body, as though it was scattering a gentle white light around his body. It was currently afternoon, and he was currently sitting on a chair at the dining table. He raised his head and looked at her. His face, which had always been cold, revealed a hint of warmth, and for a moment, he looked like a person who had entered a painting. So beautiful that it was suffocating. Master. Her heart suddenly moved, and she pounced towards him. I missed you so much. She really wanted to eat him up. Yu Yan placed down the cup in his hand, and reached out his hand to stroke her head. You've only been gone for 4 hours. 4 hours, 4 hours. It's been a long time, master. Is the matter settled? He casually pulled her onto his lap. Amen. Zhu Yao wrapped her arms around his neck, and hugged him a little tighter. Master, did anything happen at home? Yu Yan's eyes flashed. Shaking his head, he pondered for a moment, and then said. But your master has some doubts. Just as he was about to transform into 100,000 wise again. Her heart trembled, and she changed the topic. I'm so thirsty, let me drink some ice water first. After driving for a long time, she was really a little thirsty. Hurriedly, she stood up, and casually pulled open the fridge door, clang clang clang. The fridge, which was still standing tall earlier, instantly turned into thousands of parts, and collapsed onto the ground. Only the fridge door in her hands remained. Zhu Yao was dumbfounded on the spot. What was going on? I was just about to ask you, where should I install this part of the mystic tool? Yu Yan passed her a gigantic circuit board. A long while later. Master, can I discuss something with you? Amen. How can we not squander? His eyes wandered for a moment, and then, with a stern look, he said. I have installed it back. The circuit board is still outside, this is called installing it back. My heart hurts so much. What squandering? A certain master did not understand, but he could sense his disciple's disappointment. Was it because she did not drink the ice water? Amen, as a qualified master, he should take good care of his disciple. Hence, he poured a cup of water, and with a twist of his hand, the entire cup was instantly covered with frost. Come. Drink this. Zhu Yao received it with a tearless look. Master, Amen. Chapter 266. Ever since the fridge at home was gloriously destroyed, Zhu Yao forbade her master from dismantling any electrical appliances. Fortunately, the fridge was still under warranty. To this day, she still remembered the way the repairman looked at her as if she was crazy when he came to pick up the broken fridge. Don't look at me, I didn't dismantle it. Just in case, Zhu Yao introduced her master to a new toy, a computer. He also told him that all his questions could be answered online, but he was strictly forbidden from taking the computer apart. Therefore, this technology addict was completely infatuated with Baidu's auntie, and he absorbed the knowledge in it day and night. However, the way he looked at all the electrical appliances became even more fiery. Whenever he was free, he would stare at the television, air conditioner, washing machine, and other electrical appliances in the house. His face was filled with resentment as if he already knew what kind of artifact it was, but his disciple didn't allow him to open it. It made Zhu Yao feel as though she was deceiving her master and destroying her ancestors. Master, shall we go out for a stroll tomorrow? They had to divert the attention of the technology addict. Don't you have to go to work today? Yu Yan asked, his eyes still staring at the television. Maybe when his disciple went out, he could tear off a small corner. Just a small corner should be fine. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Holding on to her master's head, she turned around. Tomorrow is the weekend, so I'm resting. Come with me to take a look. After all, they were boyfriend and girlfriend. They had to go out on a date or something. After a moment of silence, he nodded. Only then did Zhu Yao heave a sigh of relief. Without making any preparations, she immediately pulled him out of the door, down the elevator, and went to the garage. But he stood still in front of the carriage, his eyes shining. What a big magic tool. Yu Yao. No. This really won't do. Then, absolutely not. Even if it was a second-hand car, it was still a car. Don't take it apart for fun. Ha. Yu Yan sighed, and then said with a stern look. What's the use of this mystic artifact? It's a transportation artifact that can only be used on land. It's equivalent to a horse carriage. Zhu Yao hesitated. A very fast horse carriage. Yu Yan nodded, and his interest instantly decreased by half. Why aren't you two using a flying mystic artifact? Isn't flying faster? There are flying ones too. The airplane was one of them. It's just that ordinary people can't make those artifacts. Only the nation, the big sects have the ability to make them. Yu Yan was startled. A mere transportation mystic tool requires a sect to forge it, and this place is actually so backward. It was no wonder though the mystic tools in the house were of extremely high quality, they were merely first or second rank. Backward. It turned to look at Zhu Yao, and slowly revealed its white teeth. It then turned around and pounced towards Zhu Yao. The owner was unable to react in time, and actually let go of the leash. The hell, it can't be, right? Zhu Yao's heart clenched, and she was shocked. Just how much did the little animals of this world hate her? Just when the dog was about to pounce towards her, suddenly, her waist tightened. Yu Yan casually pulled her behind him, and glared at the husky on the ground. The arrogant and despotic dog earlier, suddenly came to a screeching halt, yet, it did not stop its forward momentum. With a bang, it flipped over, and its body was covered in dust. Oh whoa! The husky crawled up in a fluster, and ran back to its owner's back with its tail between its legs. Its entire body began to tremble in fear, and it was even letting out low whines. Zhu Yao's eyes instantly shone, as she looked at her own master with a worshipping expression, and hugged onto his arm. Hero! She never expected that her master would even carry a buff that could disperse little animals. Yu Yan's eyes curved, and he reached out his hand to stroke his stupid disciple's head. Don't be afraid. Amen. She nodded strongly. Hero, please accept my knees. In the future, I will definitely bring my master along with me. Little lady, I'm sorry. The dog owner pulled the husky a few times, and wanted to apologize. However, the dog was still lying on the ground, unwilling to move. Left with no choice, she could only wave her hand towards Zhu Yao from afar. Scared, right? I'm fine. Zhu Yao smiled without minding it. With her almighty master, in the future, she wouldn't have to be afraid, not have to be afraid. Yu Yan indicated that the spiritual energy was coming from the fork in the road over there. The two of them walked over there, and that husky grew even more afraid. Before they even approached, its entire body suddenly trembled, broke free from its owner's leash, and madly sprinted in the opposite direction. Ha, be good, hurry and come back. The dog owner had no choice but to chase after it. Zhu Yao instantly felt a sense of satisfaction, as though she had gotten her revenge. Humph. Little animals of the world, just you wait and tremble. Exterminate. Ha, wait a minute, why did she have to be calculative with a dog? The two of them walked along the small path that was paved with stones. Probably because there weren't many people walking on this path usually, there were especially many weeds in the surroundings, and they were very exuberant as well. The deeper they walked, the louder the dog barks became. Faintly, they could hear the barks of 7 to 8 dogs. After turning a corner with great difficulty, they finally saw the group of dogs barking madly under a tree. After taking a closer look, there were more than a dozen of them, and they were of various breeds. Most of them had collars on their necks, and they should be the pet dogs raised by the people nearby. They formed an arc, and were currently barking madly at the bottom of the tree. This was the first time Zhu Yao had seen so many dogs, and she could not help but hide behind her master in a fluster. Master, please cast a dog-repelling spell on me. Stretching her neck to look, she saw a man in a well-ironed suit, who was crying bitterly, sitting under the tree. This was the first time Zhu Yao had seen a man crying so miserably. His eyes and nose were smeared all over his face, and his suit was still fine, but his pants had long been bitten into strips. On his snow-white thighs, there were patches of green and purple, and he looked especially miserable. Master. She could not help but tug at her master, and instantly, sympathy overflowed. Being bullied to this extent by a group of dogs, this was a little too pitiful. The moment her words fell, that man suddenly raised his head and looked towards her. She did not know why, but his tears began to flow even more violently. In an instant, as though he had eaten spinach, with lightning speed, he charged out of the group of dogs and pounced towards her. Grabbing onto her thighs, he cried out loud. Wah, mistress! I finally found you. Yu Yan's hand, which was just about to throw him away, paused. Zhu Yao fiercely widened her eyes as well, and said a little hesitantly. Sesame. Wah. He raised his teary eyes, and then raised his head. I'm Yuan. 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 Zhu Yao took in a deep breath. By Yuan. Amen. He nodded heavily, and his eyes were like a flood bursting out of a dam, gushing out. Mistress, the beasties here are so scary. They're all biting me. Since when did I become your mistress? No wait, the main point is, why did Bai Yuan come here as well? This was completely illogical. If her master was brought back to the modern era because he was too close to her, then the transmigration buff would activate. What was with Bai Yuan then? With its shy personality, the moment the spiritual realm door was opened, it shyly ran away. They were separated by 108,000 miles, all right. With so many people transmigrating, were they trying to turn this place into a sieve? Let's head back first. Yu Yan suggested. Zhu Yao nodded. Pulling up Bai Yuan, who was crying his eyes out, she glanced at his pants, which had long lost its ability to cover his body. If he were to walk out like this, he would probably be treated as a pervert, right? She asked for help from the little life expert. Master. Mend it for me, please. Yu Yan's expression darkened. As a mighty high deity, why did he have to mend the pants of a male demonic beast? With a wave of his hand, he took out a pair of pants from his storage ring and threw it over. Wear it. Bai Yuan wore it while sobbing. The pants were ancient clothing, and were spacious in the first place. Wearing it on his body, it looked like a skirt. The upper half of his body was dressed in a well-ironed suit, and the lower half was a light-colored long skirt. Chapter 267. Zhu Yao's house. Speak. What's going on? Why are you here? Zhu Yao passed over a tissue. Bai Yuan took it. Although his tears had stopped, he still had an aggrieved expression on his face. He bit his lower lip with teary eyes, his hands tightly hugging one of her hands, unwilling to let go. He was like a child who had been hurt physically and mentally, terrified and uneasy. Yuan doesn't know either. He sniffled. Yuan missed Mistress Yao Yao, so I used Pearl to look for Mistress Yao Yao. In the end, I became like this. Those beasties even bit me, Zhu Yao sighed, and stroked his head. The feeling of being hated by a little animal. I understand you. Back then, she was also someone who was chased by dogs for a few streets. Bai Yuan's tears gushed out again, and he cried even more sorrowfully, Beastie doesn't like me. Whoa, good. Zhang Xian rubbed his head. Sigh, in the past in the spirit realm, Bai Yuan could be considered as a wild beast that could do whatever it wanted. No matter if it was demonic beasts or human cultivators, which one of them didn't treat him like a celebrity. In the end, as soon as he arrived here, he was chased by a few dogs to this extent. Just thinking about it made him feel sad. He had transmigrated to a strange world. Plus, he was despised by small animals. Begging, the area of the shadow in Bai Yuan's heart. Zhu Yao had coaxed him for a long time, yet Bai Yuan was still crying non-stop. She felt as though the sofa in her house was about to be drowned by his tears. She had to admit that consoling a man who was a little over 170 meters tall was definitely a strenuous task. In the end, a certain master, who had long been an eyesore, made a move and knocked out this greasy alien with a single slap. Only then did the world finally return to peace. Master, sleep, we'll talk about it tomorrow. After saying that, he directly pulled his disciple back to the room and hugged her tightly on the bed. Yes, his disciple was still his. It would be troublesome to raise too many pets. Zhu Yao pondered for an entire night, yet, she still could not figure it out. How did Bai Yuan come here? If it was just the power of his inner core, she felt that it was impossible. Not to mention the fact that she did not have any so-called divine sense after she returned, it was hard to say whether the inner core that Bai Yuan had given her was still around. Furthermore, although Bai Yuan was a mystical beast, its abilities definitely did not surpass realm spirits. It would be very difficult for the spiritual realm to send her back, let alone the spiritual realm. If transmigration was really that easy, this place would have been turned into a sieve long ago, and there would have been no need to wait until now. Bai Yuan was frightened and couldn't speak clearly, so she decided to ask him in detail another day. Early in the morning of the second day, he nimbly crawled out of bed, only to discover that Bai Yuan had long since woken up, and was currently looking at his surroundings with a blank expression. "You're awake." Zhu Yao walked over to pour a cup of water. "Where is this?" he asked. "Where else could it be?" "My house." Zhu Yao passed the water over, and just as she was about to comfort him with a few more words. However, he did not take it. Instead, he took out a wallet from his pocket and took out a stack of money. He threw it to her and said, "Take it." Zhu Yao was startled, as she did not understand what he was trying to do. "What do you mean?" He sneered and threw the money on the table. "We're all adults here. It's just a game. I advise you not to take it so seriously." "Adults? Really?" Suddenly, he thought of something and sized up the person in front of him. "Bai Yuan." "What Bai Yuan?" He frowned, and looked at her with a little disdain. "This can't be your first time, right? We're all here to sell ourselves, why are you playing with my feelings?" The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. With a wave of her hand, she splashed the water in the cup away. "You didn't brush your teeth this morning, right? Do you need me to help you? Knock out his teeth or something?" You. His face was filled with shock, as he wiped his face. "I've already given you the money, what do you want?" "It's just a game. You can't possibly want me to take responsibility, right? Take responsibility. Dream on." Zhu Yao even threw the cup away. "You're crazy." That person dodged to the side, and looked at her with a shocked expression. "If I wasn't drunk, do you think I would have taken a liking to you? Let me tell you, my standards are very high." Hey, what are you doing? Put the teapot down." Zhu Yao was in a fit of anger, as she raised the teapot and was about to smash it onto his body. "What happened?" Yu Yan walked out of the bedroom. He was still wearing his pajamas, and his face carried a hint of sleepiness. His black hair was scattered behind his back, and for some reason, he looked extremely sensual. That person's eyes instantly straightened, as he stared at Yu Yan, who was behind him with an infatuated look. His mouth slightly opened, and he suddenly said, "Mister, may I ask if you're gay?" Zhu Yao simply felt as though a string in her mind had snapped with a paw sound. Scram! She kicked him out. It was fine if he thought she was a special worker, but he actually dared to covet her man. Zhu Yao punched and kicked him, and then chased him out with a broom. With a panged sound, she closed the door. That man, however, was still shouting loudly outside the door. "Hey, wait a minute. Even if you're not gay, it's still good to make friends." When she walked back, her master had already changed out of his pajamas, and was sitting on a chair. "Master, he." It was clearly the same face, why did he turn into a completely different person after a single night? "He's not Bai Yuan," Yu Yan said with a sunken voice. "The spiritual energy in his body has disappeared." Then did Bai Yuan transmigrate over or not? Most likely, it's just Bai Yuan's soul, which instantly resided in that person's body. Currently, he should have already returned. It was no wonder Bai Yuan would dress like that in the beginning. Then will Bai Yuan still return? Yu Yan shook his head. "I don't know either." Zhu Yao sighed. Initially, she had wanted to ask him about it, but she never expected that after a single night, she would not be able to find him. Forget it, Bai Yuan did not belong to this world in the first place. His body and mind were both damaged from this trip. It's good that he returned. After the person by Yuan possessed left, she did not see him again during the 2 days of the weekend. Zhu Yao reminded her master to take care of household appliances, and things like that, and then went to work as usual. Not long after she arrived at the company, Haozi ran over to pass a message, saying that the new general manager wanted to meet her. She was the manager of the planning department, so the other party would look for her sooner or later. Zhu Yao did not hesitate either, and headed upstairs. The office was still the same office, just that the person inside was no longer her classmate, Fatty. Zhu Yao sighed, and then knocked on the door. After hearing a response, she pushed the door open and entered. What she saw was a face with a swollen nose, and a bright purple face. Amen. And it looked a little familiar. Coincidentally, that person raised his head as well, and instantly, he spat out a mouthful of tea. It's you. It's you. They spoke in unison. Why are you here? Why are you here? That as expected, something like fate was a bitch. Even in her dreams, she would never have thought that the pervert who was lusting after her man this morning was actually her new superior. As expected, he really was a motherfucking bitch. Coo. The new bitch faked a few coughs, alleviated the awkwardness, and immediately picked up the integrity of a general manager. Hello. I'm Yu Tian. Your surname is Yu as well. Zhu Yao was startled. Who's Fatty to you? You're talking about Brother Ban. He's my cousin. The hell? This damn Fatty was too unkind. So the people he sold were still his own people. You're Zhu Yao, right? He stood up and reached out his hand towards her. In the future, we'll be colleagues. I hope Supervisor Zhu can work hard for the company like before, and have a pleasant cooperation. Zhu Yao glanced at him, yet she did not reach out her hand. Who would want to be friends with a love rival? Scram! The corner of Yu Tian's lips twitched. He knew that she was still angry about the incident that day. Coo. I was in the wrong back then. The day before, I was a little drunk. Can you tell me how I ended up on your sofa? How would I know how you found it? Zhu Yao began to make up a story. She couldn't possibly say that he was possessed by a beastie, right? That day, I saw you loitering at my doorstep, refusing to leave no matter what. You even ran around my thighs and cried for an entire night. I was kind enough to let you sleep on the sofa for a night. Yu Tian frowned. That's not right. His alcohol tolerance was pretty good, and he had never done such a shameless thing before. And he completely did not remember drinking alcohol yesterday. However, when he woke up, his eyes were indeed red and swollen, as though he had cried for a long time. General Manager, is there anything else? There's nothing else, you can return. Although he was still suspicious, Yu Tian had no choice but to accept this reason. Zhu Yao turned around and walked towards the door. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao turned around, only to see him asking with sparkling eyes. Let me ask, the person in your house is my husband. Oh. He was so beautiful. So he really was a man. How disappointing. General Manager. Amen. I'm very familiar with Fatty's mother. Do you think I should send her a message about your sexual orientation? Zhu Yao observed this new boss for a few days, and realized that Bai Yuan had indeed never appeared again. This fellow called Yu Tian, as expected of Fatty's family. He was similarly unreliable. Although he did not raise cats anymore, he still raised dogs. She had seen him holding onto a Samoyed a few times when he got off work. Fortunately, Bai Yuan did not come, otherwise, who knew how frightened he would be. A few weeks later, Zhu Yao was finally certain that Bai Yuan would not appear. Before she could even feel at ease, a few days later, when Zhu Yao was having a department meeting in the conference room, Yu Tian suddenly rushed in. Hugging onto her thigh, he cried out with tears streaming down his face. Little martial ant. Zhu Yao, everyone, this world would not be pierced into a sieve, but Yu Tian was about to be pierced into a sieve. Continue your discussion, I will come back later. Zhu Yao picked up the person on the ground, and dragged Yu Tian all the way back to his office. With a paw sound, she closed the door, and locked it. Who are you? Little martial ant, I'm Zidan. He said with a sincere look. Zidan. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. You're the fatty from Beast Taming Mountain? What the hell was a fatty? He was just a little stout. Alright then, how did you come here? Zhu Yao sighed. Naturally, I came here after my lifespan came to an end. Initially, I wanted to look around, but I never expected to see little martial ant. Zidan looked around, his face was filled with curiosity. Could this be the underworld? I wonder where can I enter the path of reincarnation? Jump down from the window, and you will be able to enter the path of reincarnation. This was the 30th floor. Really? He walked towards the window, eager to give it a try. Chapter 268. Come back, I have something to show you. Zhu Yao immediately pulled him in front of a full-length mirror, allowing him to clearly see her own appearance. Sure enough, he was shocked. He touched his face and said with a look of surprise, could it be that after entering the netherworld, there is an automatic slimming array? Slim my ass. Look clearly, this isn't you at all. You're a fatty. No matter how much you slim down, it's impossible for you to become as thin as lightning in such a short time. Not me. Only then did Zidan react, and carefully looked at the person in the mirror. Little martial uncle is saying, my soul is attached to this person's body. Zhu Yao nodded. He frowned. But why can't I sense the fluctuations of his soul at all? Could it be that he is already dead? No. Zhu Yao patted on his shoulders. Believe me, this person was still jumping around just a moment ago. What's that? I'm unable to answer you right now. Zhu Yao sighed. Everything will have to wait until tomorrow. Who knew if he would be like Bai Yuan, and return in a single night? Stay here for now. I'll find a way to investigate your current situation after I'm done here. Zidan nodded. Only then did Zhu Yao walk out. Before she left, she could not help but remind him. Oh right, don't casually touch anything here. Some of them might be extremely dangerous mystic artifacts. After saying that, she returned to the meeting. She hurriedly handed over the work, then brought Zidan home. It was a pity that even the master of the high-end technical talent could not tell what was going on. However, this time, the spiritual energy on Zidan's body was not the same as Bai Yuan's, but ghost energy. It seemed like Zidan's lifespan had indeed come to an end, but something went wrong when he entered the underworld. He did not manage to enter the underworld, and instead came to the modern era. Zidan's cultivation had already reached the demigod level in his previous life, but he was unable to successfully ascend. When she heard that little Radish had already reached the demigod stage as well, and her cultivation seemed to be even higher than his, Zhu Yao felt a little at ease. They chatted the whole day. Early the next morning, she heard a cry of surprise as soon as she woke up. Holy shit, why am I here again? As expected, Zidan returned as well. The door's over there, it's easy to enter or not. Zhu Yao pointed to the door. Yu Tian went out with a baffled look on his face. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember why he was at his subordinate's house again. Did he have a habit of sleepwalking? He returned to the company with a puzzled look, but strangely found that every employee seemed to be looking at him strangely. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. Could it be that when he was sleepwalking, he did something shameful? He thought about it for a few days, but he still couldn't remember what had happened. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but the others looked at him even more strangely. Sometimes, they even whispered behind his back. This feeling of being kept in the dark was too terrible. He was so anxious that his heart was scratching, and finally, he could not help but call Zhu Yao to his office. Currently, a week had already passed since the last time he woke up in Zhu Yao's house. Nothing. You simply hugged my thigh and called me Senior Marshal Uncle a few times. Zhu Yao casually explained. This was witnessed by the entire company, she could not lie. Impossible. Yu Tian refuted without even thinking about it. Was he such an unprincipled person? How could he do something like hugging someone's thigh? Besides, he wasn't the least bit interested in women with no chest, okay? Hey! If I want to complain, can you please not say it out loud? What do you mean no breasts? You don't even have breasts in your family, okay? Ahem. A slip of the tongue. It's fine. You can leave now. In any case, he didn't believe it at all. Zhu Yao curled her lips, turned around, opened the door, and left. From then on, Yu Tian would always appear in front of her with a different identity, once a week. Bai Yuan, Zidan, Little Radish, Sesame. Basically, she had visited everyone she knew. Every single time, they would come for a day, and they would disappear on time the next morning. They were even more accurate than menstruation, and they would come 4 times a month. Her boss was being transported every single day. Zhu Yao felt that her future life would not be good. Even Yu Tian realized that there was something wrong with him. Every time he looked at her, his eyes were filled with all sorts of bright and sad emotions. Director Zhu. Yu Tian felt that it was time to have a heart-to-heart talk with his subordinate. Do you think there's something wrong with me recently? Zhu Yao's heart clenched. General Manager, what are you talking about? Look, I've been waking up on your sofa for the past few months. Don't you think, what? Your sofa is really good, huh? Oh right, what brand did you buy? Why don't you introduce it to me? If not, you can just sell it to me. Was the main point the sofa? Goodbye. Wait a minute, the price can be discussed. Zhu Yao immediately walked out and closed the door. She, who was worried that he would see through the truth, was really thinking too much. However, if she were to continue wearing it like this, even if Yu Tian could not sense it, others would be able to. Just what should she do? You can ask Realm Spirit. Yu Yen suggested. Realm Spirit? Zhu Yao was startled. Since he was able to send you back, then the others are no exception as well. You're saying, this was done by Realm Spirit? He nodded. Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. Indeed, only Realm Spirit had this ability. Anger instantly erupted. This bastard was actually plotting against her behind her back. Rushing into the room, she took out the laptop which was locked at the bottom of the box. The moment she turned it on, before she could even connect to the internet, Realm Spirit's QQ automatically popped up. Realm Spirit, dear, you finally remembered me, dear. Whoa. If you didn't come, I would have run out of battery. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. You can run out of battery as well. Realm Spirit, of course dear, please plug it in. It's an emergency. Save me. 3 red exclamation marks instantly appeared on the screen. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. She turned around and plugged it in. I'm saved. A familiar voice sounded from the computer. Please be careful with household appliances. You're a computer-invading virus, and you have the cheek to say that you'll be treated well. Speak, Bai Yuan, Zidan, what's going on with them? Why did they possess my boss's body? I was afraid that you'd be too lonely, so I pulled them over to have a chat. Chat your sister. I'm a perfectly fine person, yet I'm about to become a lunatic because of you, alright? Don't worry. Realm Spirit said without the slightest bit of mind. I chose him because he's a person with a strong will. He won't be defeated by such a small matter. Do you deserve to be transported just because you have a strong will? Don't mess around, hey. Young maiden, don't you wish to see them? Realm Spirit asked. Young maiden, you have to understand my painstaking efforts. Zhu Yao was stunned. She was indeed very happy to see familiar people. Everyone had their own selfish motives, and she was no exception. Yu Yao. Yu Yan pulled her into his embrace, and only then did Zhu Yao regain her senses. Realm Spirit, don't try to change the topic. She was almost tricked by him. Me wanting to see familiar people, and you constantly having people enter Yu Tian's body, are two different things. Don't think I don't know what you're trying to do. Aren't you trying to rouse my reluctance to leave, and have me return? Realm Spirit sank into silence. A moment later, he solemnly said. Young maiden. You're really the only one who can help me. Zhu Yao was a little furious. Realm Spirit, I don't owe you anything. Whether I help you or not isn't my responsibility, nor is it my duty. Putting aside the fact that I haven't decided to return yet, even if I do, you can't force me. I've said it before. The root problem of those bugs you had me fix lies in the heavenly Tao itself. The setting that ignores, or even tramples on lives, is the root cause of the bugs. And now, you're having people transmigrate into Yu Tian's body one after another. Have you ever asked for his opinion? What's the difference between your actions and those bugs? But I'm doing this for, don't tell me you're doing this to save the world. Just because you want to save the world, you can ignore the lives of the people in other worlds. What does your world have to do with Yu Tian? Realm Spirit sank into silence for a moment, as though he was considering her words. After a long while, he softly said. I'm sorry. Zhu Yao had always thought that it was different, so even if she was tricked by it time and time again, she had never blamed it. After all, only he was clear-headed enough to know that there was a problem in that world. A person who knew how to self-reflect would never be a bad person. But this time, he had indeed gone overboard. If she were to say that as a friend, she had a duty to Realm Spirit, but just who did Yu Tian offend? Why did he have to be dragged into this? Realm Spirit, it's fine if you want to save that world, but first, you have to ensure that you're clear-headed and correct. I understand. Realm Spirit's voice softened, as he solemnly said. Thank you, Yao Yao. You're right. That world is my world, and the ones who should be responsible for it are us, not you. I shouldn't have used these methods to deal with my friends. Only then did Zhu Yao's anger subside a little. In the future, no more human souls will transmigrate over. That's more like it. I will remove all influences on this world. Regarding those people who transmigrated over, I will take them all back as well. That's right. Yu Yan as well. What? Zhu Yao was startled. The laptop suddenly emitted a golden light. Her waist loosened, and her master who was sitting next to her earlier, instantly disappeared. The hell, Realm Spirit, what did you do to my master? She grabbed onto the laptop and shook it. Return my master to me. Wait. Wait a minute. Faint. Realm Spirit begged as he said. Young maiden, don't be agitated. Listen to my explanation, the laws of the world. You kidnapped my master, what else is there to explain? Wait a minute. Young maiden, put down that electric wire. Don't pull it out, let's talk things out. He actually cut off the electricity. That was too scary. Where's my master? Zhu Yao turned to glare at him. It's not like her master had transmigrated into someone else's body, he came over with his original body. Here. The laptop's image changed, and a movie interface appeared on it. It was the foot of a mountain, and there were even 2 familiar thatched cottages. Her master, who was still dressed in modern clothes, was standing in front of the cottage. This was the foot of the lightning divine Hall's mountain. Zhu Yao's heart felt empty. You sent him back. Chapter 269. What do you mean? Earlier, he was clearly the one who said he was going to take him back. Young maiden, I have no choice either. Realm Spirit sighed. Your master will be sent back sooner or later. It's just a matter of time, and it's not something I can control. Sent back. What did he mean? Was he treating him as an illegal immigrant? Young maiden, your world is completely different from mine. This side is too stable. Realm Spirit sighed. Every plane has its own laws, and the laws are the most basic criteria for the formation of a world. All living beings in a plane can only maintain the stability of the world by following these criteria. If a deviation were to appear, it would lead to a complete collapse. You're saying, my master is that deviation. Zhu Yao clenched her fists. You sent my master back in order to fix the deviation. I already told you, I'm not the one who sent him back. Realm Spirit wanted to cry. Theoretically speaking, anything that doesn't belong to this world is considered a deviation. The moment a deviation appears, a huge matter that affects the stability of the plane will occur. However, your world is different. What's different? Can't you just say it all at once? The plane on your side is abnormally stable. Word by word, he faintly said with a hint of envy and jealousy. It's stable to the point that you can issue me a pass. Ugh. The hell is a pass? He really thinks this side is a place for immigrants, hey? It's true. I came here because I have a pass. Realm Spirit shook the conversation window, and suddenly, a picture window popped up on the table. A few words were written on it. Plain passage permit Realm Spirit, a resident of a different world. Gender, age during his existence in the other world, he has been well behaved. His profile is excellent. He has no bad habits. He has reached the requirements for plain passage, so this pass is specially issued. Plane Transmigration Inspection Bureau January 16, 2015 Zhu Yao, Flips Table. What the hell is a Plane Transmigration Inspection Bureau? Why the hell have I never heard of it before? Just where did this strange department pop out from? Do you see it now? The picture window flashed, and then disappeared. Realm Spirit said with a slightly proud tone. My appearance is in accordance with the Planes Management Treaty, and I'm going through the proper procedures. I have a pass, you know. Then what does this have to do with my master's disappearance? Of course it's related. He raised his voice. Your master came with you when you were deported, so he didn't go through the examination. Without a license, he would be considered a stowaway. You can only stay for 3 months. Once the time is up, you will be forcibly repatriated. As it turned out, her master was an unregistered citizen. Where's the Plane Transmigration Inspection Bureau? She could at least get a new certificate. Maiden. His voice was a little hesitant. Your level isn't high enough. I can't get this certificate. If he wanted to get a license, he would have to work hard to level up and kill monsters. For example, helping me fix bugs or something. Slowly, you'll have the qualifications to apply for a certificate. Why do I feel like I've been scammed? He raised his head and glared at the dialogue box. You're not lying to me, are you? That inspection bureau doesn't even exist. You have to believe me, young lady, he said sincerely. Why do you think I can only appear in a computer? Because of the laws of the plane, I cannot appear in physical form in your world. That's why I have to stay in your computer. Then why can I go to your world? If there really were rules in her world, then when she transmigrated, she would have to go to the other world. Why didn't they encounter any obstacles at all? No matter what, he would at least try to stop them. Cough cough. That's because. Realm Spirit's voice suddenly became hesitant. Young lady, you know, traveling between planes is like traveling. Every traveling person likes to bring along some local specialties and the like. These won't be checked. Local specialties. Holy shit, she was actually that local specialty, hey. It's still too early for you to know about the girl's plane, and I can't give you a detailed explanation right now. You'll slowly understand these things in the future. Somehow, he felt that something was amiss. Young lady, how is it? Are you interested in leveling up and getting a pass or something? It's not a dream, okay? Realm Spirit said in a relaxed manner. If I help you fix the bug, can I really help Master get that certificate? She felt that it was unreliable. Of course, I swear on my integrity. Do you still have integrity? Realm Spirit paused. How about I guarantee it with my chrysanthemum? Chrysanthemum my ass, what the hell is your chrysanthemum? A charging port, or a USB port? It had long been pierced through, alright. Zhu Yao sighed deeply. She was completely convinced by this shameless Realm Spirit. After hesitating for a moment, she said. Back then, when I returned, why didn't you tell me about these things? Back then, you were in your honeymoon period, how could I bear to disturb you? You're not disturbing us this time, you're basically breaking us up, alright? The moment she recalled how her master was sent back without knowing the reason, she felt like killing someone. Only a ghost would believe that he did all of this just for this. Speak human language. He went silent for a moment, before saying. Back then, your soul was unstable, and you needed to recuperate in your original world. You needed the source energy of this world, in order to stabilize your soul. If I were to send you back, I wouldn't be able to fix it. To put it simply, it's because you're not acclimatized. Acclimatized could be explained in such a manner. In other words, you feel that it's already fixed now. Amen. Your body is great. You can climb 5 floors in one go, and it's not a waste of energy. He sobbed a few times. Young lady, you don't know this, but back then, when I sent you back, my certificate of qualification was almost revoked. My credibility instantly dropped by 20%. Fortunately, I used my luck to make up for it. That manager of your world. In any case, he's really scary. Luck can even be used to make up for this. Seeing that I've paid a terrible price, young lady, love me one more time. Why did she feel like slapping him so much? Transmigrate, young lady. As long as you say, I'm willing, I will return you a beautiful tomorrow. Realm Spirit immediately released fireworks on the computer screen. If you join the deluxe package now, you can even gift a boyfriend as a friendly gift. Do I need you to send me back then? That was mine in the first place, right? Forget it. What else could she say? Her master had already been deported back, and her man was gone. How could she not go back and pick him up? Zhu Yao gave her family a call, and spoke a few words with her parents. In the end, she still held back, and did not speak the truth. I can still return, right? Of course. The plane movement permit is issued by an authoritative organization. A single pass is not a dream. Furthermore, whenever you transmigrate, the time you return will be the same as well. Our goal is, no mistakes. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Enough, let's go. All right. Realm Spirit. Young lady. Don't lie to me. Otherwise, I don't know if I can still trust you in the future. Suddenly, the entire room darkened. Who turned off the lights? A running loading bar suddenly appeared not far away, and not even a moment later, the screen reached 100%. In the next moment, she fell into a coma. A long while later, all right. When she woke up once again, Zhu Yao saw a dreamlike veil. Like an aurora, it could even constantly change colors, and it was extremely beautiful. Zhu Yao stared straight at it for 5 minutes, before realizing that she seemed to be a little bored. When she sat up, she was currently sitting on a white jade bed, and the veil earlier, was the veil hanging on the bed. The surroundings were extremely luxurious, and every single object was carefully selected, the most perfect masterpiece. Even the floor was paved with jade stones. Zhu Yao's first thought was, so rich. She felt as though she had reached the peak of her life. Realm Spirit had finally given her a boss account. Raising her head to look at herself, she realized that she had changed into another avatar. What she was wearing was not the pajamas she wore in the modern era, but a conservative and tightly wrapped woman's dress. However, looking at the decorations, the environment, and the dense aura of a young lady, no matter what, this was the standard configuration of a great beauty. Zhu Yao's heart stirred. She wanted to take a look at her own appearance, only to realize that there was not a single strand of spiritual energy in her body, let alone forming a water mirror. She looked around for a mirror, but after looking around for a while, she could not even see a single object that could reflect light, let alone a mirror. Just as she was wondering why such a luxurious room would be missing such an important object like a mirror, the door creaked open. A girl in a pink dress, who was as beautiful as a fairy, walked in. She suddenly widened her eyes and glanced at her. A joyful expression surfaced on her face, and she excitedly said, "Grandma, you're finally awake." The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. What the hell is Grandma? She sized up the girl for a moment. You can't be called Little Qian, right? The girl had a joyous look, as she hurriedly nodded. That's right, that's right. Grandma, I'm Little Qian. It can't be, you're really called Little Qian, hey? This isn't a horror film, at least retort a little. Grandma. The girl's eyes reddened, and suddenly, she began to cry like a pear blossom. You're finally awake. You don't know how bitter the lives of the people in the clan were while you were asleep. Little Qian had been waiting for you to wake up day and night. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao felt that she had to first top up her moral integrity. What's this place? What clan are you talking about? Don't force a storyline on me every single time, hey. Grandma, what's wrong? Could it be that you have yet to recover from your injuries? Little Qian's face was filled with worry. Her beautiful face in the first place, now looked even more pitiful. Please don't scare Little Qian, alright? Miss, you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not your grandma. No matter how the storyline was, she couldn't possibly be the grandma of a young girl, right? The girl, however, grew even more anxious. This won't do. I have to find Junior Marshall's sister to take a look at you. She's the only one in the clan who's proficient in medicine. After saying that, she turned around and ran out. Why do I have a bad premonition? Chapter 270. In less than a quarter of an hour, the girl ran back again, dragging someone in her hands. That was also a beautiful girl, so beautiful, that she looked exactly the same as little Qian. Beautiful twins. Junior Marshall's sister, hurry and take a look at Grandma. She has even forgotten who she is. I'm really not your grandma, hey. Don't worry. The other girl glanced at her, patted on little Qian's shoulders, and consoled her. Grandma has simply been asleep for too long, and has forgotten some things. She'll remember after rubbing her head a little more. After saying that, she pulled out a brick from behind her with a stern look. What happened to the promised head rubbing? What happened to being proficient in medicine? Why did you pull out a brick? Grandma, it doesn't hurt at all. The second beautiful girl walked closer with a sincere look. Zhu Yao immediately made a decision, and hugged onto her hand that was holding onto the brick. I'm your grandma, your real grandma. Can't I enter the plot now? I knew it. Little Qian instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Grandma, how can you make such a joke with little Qian? Ha, ha, ha ha. Only then did the second girl silently keep the brick. Sighing, she softly muttered. Ha, what a pity. What's with that disappointed look on your face? What's a pity? Speak clearly, hey. What happened to the promised tradition of respecting the elderly and loving the young? Grandma, the Junior Marshall sisters all know that you're awake, and they're anxious to see you. Let's go out. Little Qian suggested with a sincere look. Zhu Yao looked at the second girl who was still holding onto the brick, and silently nodded. Little Qian happily went forward to hold onto her hand, and the second girl automatically went forward to hold onto her other side as well. Zhu Yao felt as though she was a 1,000-year-old tree demon. Walking along the small path in the courtyard, a plaza appeared in front of them. On the plaza stood 7 to 8 girls with the same hairstyle, clothes, accessories, and even their faces looked exactly the same as little Qian. 4, 5, 6, 7, the hell. Just how many children did this family give birth to, hey? This is a little too terrifying, isn't it? Grandma. There were 7 or 8 girls who looked exactly the same. 7 to 8 girls who looked exactly the same. Even the extent to which he bent his lower body was the same. For a moment, she felt a little afraid. Grandma, you're finally awake. This is great. Grandma is awake. We won't have to be afraid anymore. Our clan status can also be raised. That's right, our clan has become even stronger. The girls began to discuss with each other, and all of them had an excited look on their faces. Zhu Yao pulled little Qian next to her. Little Qian. Grandma just woke up. Why don't you introduce these junior sisters to me? Of course, I didn't forget. I just want to test you. So, sister number 2, can you put the brick away? Grandma, this isn't a problem for me. Little Qian smiled and pointed at her junior sisters in front of her. My name is Xiao Qian, that's Junior Marshall sister's name. Naturally, she will be called Little Qian. This is too casual, isn't it? It's just the addition of the word Qian. And third junior sister's name, it couldn't be Little Qian, right? Third junior sister is called Little Third Qian, and fourth junior sister is called Little Fourth Qian. Fifth junior sister is called Little Fifth Qian. The name was too awesome. She was speechless. Wait a minute. Then what's my name? Grandma's surname is obviously Zhu. Ming Yao. Phew. Fortunately, she was the only normal one. Because you're our clan's grandma, everyone calls you Tai Qian. Flips table. You're the one who's asking for it. Your entire family is asking for it. Zhu Yao deeply felt that she had transmigrated to a world where everyone's naming skills were useless. On the second day, she finally found out what clan Little Qian was talking about. She was actually a dandelion that had cultivated for 1,000 years in the mountains. P.S. Seed. That's right, it was the kind of plant that didn't even have much ornamental value, and would occasionally be picked by couples to act cool. After knowing the truth, tears fell. She finally knew why so many Qians looked exactly the same. Because they were all seeds from the same dandelion, and their original forms were the ones that carried little umbrellas. The identities given to her by Realm Spirit were getting more and more bizarre. It had been a long time since she was a normal person. From Little Qian's mouth, she found out that she seemed to be an incredible and awesome spirit. Zhu Yao was a little excited at this point. She wondered what her cultivation level was. Although she did not have the slightest bit of spiritual energy in her body, wasn't this a professional setup for changing avatars? Everything would be solved once spiritual energy entered her body. Thus, Zhu Yao calmed her heart, closed her eyes, and sensed the spiritual energy. Recalling her original form, she did not immediately take in lightning spiritual energy, but rather, wood spiritual energy. She had made preparations beforehand, and had even prepared a spiritual energy guiding formation, afraid that she would run out of spiritual energy. She wondered if she was an Azoth core, or a nascent soul cultivator, or a demigod. She made preparations for a long period of closed-door training. With a thought, the green fluorescent lights in the surroundings began to gather into her body. 1, 2, 3. She was full. Zhu Yao, she finished replenishing her spiritual energy in 3 seconds, then her cultivation level was the first level of essence. Flips table. What happened to being amazing and amazing? An old demon that had cultivated for 1,000 years, why was she still at the first level of essence? Wait, she had just taken in spiritual energy, and she was only at the first level of essence with spiritual energy. That meant, she had never cultivated before. Then how in the world did she take on a human form? She felt the malice of the entire world. Grandma, are you awake? Little Qian knocked on the door. She really wanted some peace and quiet. Little Qian pushed open the door and entered. In her hands, she was even carrying a basin filled with water. Placing it at the side, she said a little hesitantly. Grandma, young Master Pod from the other side of the mountain has come to visit you. Do you wish to meet him? The hell was young Master Pod? Then let's meet him. Since he had already delivered himself to her doorstep, it would be good to go out and relax. Little Qian's expression turned joyful. Then after Grandma is done washing up, Little Qian will bring you to the front hall. Zhu Yao nodded. In her heart, she was still thinking about how she was going to raise her own cultivation level. She took the towel that she handed over. Lowering her head, just as she was about to place it into the basin. Stunned. Little Qian. Did you put a bitter gourd in the water? Bitter gourd? I didn't. What was that thing in the folds that could even trap flies? Little Qian was startled. She took a step forward and looked into the water. Grandma, other than your reflection, there's nothing else in the water. This is me. No, this can't be real, the white-haired one inside. An old face that was filled with wrinkles. It definitely wasn't hers. Grandma, your wrinkles are really getting more and more beautiful. A long while later, a cry of shock instantly pierced through the skies. Grandma, what happened to you? Little Qian was given a fright. Girlie. Zhu Yao grabbed onto her shoulder. Tell me, we're actually bitter gourd spirits, right? That must be the case, right? Otherwise, how could she have such a face that looked as though it had gone through the vicissitudes of life? Grandma, are you having a relapse again? We're dandelions. This isn't real. Why did she turn into an old granny? So the reason why they called her grandma was because she was really old. Little Chien had an anxious look. Grandma. Don't speak. Please let me be quiet for a moment. Little Chien said. Dandelion spirits usually only had a lifespan of 500 years. As a dandelion that had lived for 1,000 years, she could be considered a human, no, a spirit. Little Chien said. In the world of us demons, we compete to see who has the longest lifespan. The older one is, the better one's status is. The older one is, the more authority one has. Little Chien said. At the level of the demon race. How old is the oldest one in the race? Little Chien said. What's the deal with cultivation? Little Chien said. Grandma, your wrinkles are so beautiful. Little Chien said a lot, but no matter what, she could not change the fact that she had turned into an old granny. In an instant, she felt as though her entire body was aching, and her legs were cramping up. At this moment, Little Chien said again. Grandma, are you still going to meet young Master Pod and his family? They have already waited for 6 hours. She was not in a good mood, but she still had to do her job. Zhu Yao tidied up her emotions, and did some self-improvement, before following Little Chien out to show her old face. Ever since she saw her true face, she could even faintly hear the creaking sounds of her bones as she walked. After passing through several small alleys, she finally arrived at the hall. She leisurely sat on the highest chair in the hall. Little Chien called out. Only then did she see a man and a woman walking in from the entrance. The woman was even carrying a gigantic green pea pod in her hands. Zhu Yao was a little curious. What was that? The two of them formally bowed towards her. Greetings, Grand Chien. You're the one who's asking for it. Both of you are asking for it. Dispense with the formalities, rise. She mustn't get angry, she mustn't get angry. The man of the two took a step forward, and cupped his fists. This humble one has heard that 1,000-year-old grandma has awoken in the Duke clan, so this humble one has specially come to pay his respects. Young Master Jia is thoughtful. Zhu Yao chuckled. So their clan was called the Duke clan, why wasn't it called the Pu clan or the Ying clan? There wasn't a single male in the clan. Other than that. That man scratched his head a little embarrassedly. Exchanging glances with his wife next to him, he hesitantly spoke up. This humble one has a presumptuous request, I hope Grand Chien will agree to it. Grand Chien expressed that she did not want to agree at all. Young Master Jia, please speak. It's like this. He said with a joyous look. Coincidentally, I gave birth to a child a few days ago, so I shamelessly wish for Grand Chien to give the child a name. So it's to give the child a name. Things like giving names were things she was extremely good at, but... Where's the child? Here. The woman who had been standing at the side without uttering a single word the entire time, walked over with an excited look, and reached out the gigantic pea pod in her hands. This is a child. Are you kidding me? Wait a minute, young Master Jia. Pod, the hell, so this family is a pea pod. Can you be any more straightforward, hey? Chapter 271. Ha, ho ho, ho ho ho. Zhu Yao awkwardly stroked the gigantic pea pod. These children look really good. Great Chien, you're overpraising me. The girl said with a shy look. This little girl simply pays more attention to drinking dew water. I'm not praising you, hey. I hope Great Chien can give the children a name, so that we can enjoy some of your good fortune. The Peapod father said with a sincere look. Ahem. Zhu Yao straightened her expression, and said with a serious look. Which boss? This one. The Peapod mother pointed to the leftmost Peapod. It's the first one to bulge, and the ones next to it are the second, third, and fourth. Oh. Zhu Yao inspected that Peapod seriously. She could not see any difference in the bulge at all. It looks round and smooth, and is filled with vitality. Why don't we call it Little P? Little Chien. The entire place was silent for a second. Great. Great Chien, then what about the ones next to it? The Peapod mother asked. Zhu Yao glanced at the Peapod, and pointed at them one by one. Little Teaser. Big Teaser. Giant Teaser. Extra Teaser. Grandma. The corner of Little Chien's lips twitched. That's great. The Peapod father excitedly slapped his thigh. As expected of the oldest dandelion in a radius of 50 kilometers. Thank you, Great Chien, for bestowing us with such a name. The Peapod mother looked as though she was about to cry from excitement. Thank you, Great Chien, for giving my son such a nice-sounding name. Ho ho ho. Zhu Yao patted on their shoulders. You two have good taste. There aren't many people in this world who can keep up with my taste, you know. As expected, there were still people in this world who understood her taste. She had to tell her master about it when she returned. Little P, Big P, Giant P. Extra P, why aren't you coming out to thank Great Chien for bestowing us with a name? The Peapod mother said to the Peapod. Suddenly, the pea holder emitted out a white glow, and 4 rays of green light flew out from within, landing neatly next to Zhu Yao. In a blink of an eye, 4 fair and tender, chubby little shodas with bare buttocks appeared. They stood there. Thank you, Grandma, for helping us break out of our shells. The 4 identical New Year painting dolls raised their little heads and thanked Zhu Yao. Good boys. Zhu Yao waved at them. New Year painting dolls. Only then did he pounce on his parents. The family of 6 seemed to be celebrating the new year, and there was no need to mention how happy they were. Her parents thanked her again and again. Thank you, Tai Chien. If it weren't for you, who knows when my baby would have hatched. Hee, it's only right. It's my duty. The 2 of them thanked him profusely before bringing the 4 dolls home. He glanced at the tasteful family. Suddenly, a question popped up in her mind. Xiao Qian, does the bean clip need to have a name before it can hatch? She nodded. It's not just bean clip. All the monsters need to have a name before they can transform. So the name was for transfiguration. Only old monsters. Only then did he have the ability to give names. That's why young master and his wife are so happy that Grandma can take out 4 names at once. Xiao Qian said with a deadpan expression. The corners of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. It's just picking a name, is it that hard? She looked down at the bean holder on the ground, which had been flattened because the child had broken out of its shell. She saw a faint flash of green light inside. She pried open the bean holder and pulled out a fist-sized bean from the rightmost position. Did she miss this? This is an abandoned seed. Xiao Qian glanced at the bean in her hands. What do you mean? Xiao Qian explained. This is a seed that they abandoned. Abandoned? Grandma, the bean clip race is different from my race. In every bean clip, there will be an abandoned seed that provides nutrients to the other beans, allowing the other children to grow. Abandoned seeds only have a body, and do not have a soul. This one is an abandoned seed. Zhu Yao was startled. There was actually such a rule. Then is this bean still alive? Abandoned seeds don't have life. Xiao Qian said with certainty. Zhu Yao frowned. But she could clearly sense the life within this bean. Was she imagining things? In the end, Zhu Yao still picked up the bean, and casually placed it in the wood-type spiritual energy gathering formation. Perhaps it would grow up. After settling everything, Zhu Yao began to meditate and cultivate as well. Although she did not know what bug she had to fix this time, with her current level of cultivation, even if she encountered a bug, she would most likely be crushed. Raising her cultivation was the way to go. Right now, her master was not by her side, and this place did not look like the divine realm either. Only by raising her cultivation would she have hope of finding her man. She did not know why, but in this place she was currently at, although plants could all turn into spirits, the spiritual energy here was extremely thin, especially the wood spiritual energy. Even after laying down a spiritual energy gathering formation, the amount of wood spiritual energy that could be drawn was still extremely limited. After rising to the first level of essence, she meditated for an entire night. Now that 3 days had passed, the amount of spiritual energy she had drawn was barely enough for her to enter the second level. Zhu Yao, whose cultivation had never been this difficult, encountered her first Waterloo. It seemed like she had to put in more effort. She once again reinforced the surrounding spiritual energy gathering formation, bid farewell to Qian and the rest, and then went into closed-door training. In order to draw in even more spiritual energy, she used her old method, which was to have the spiritual energy in her dantian turn into a spiral shape, and spin in a single direction, allowing the inertia to bring in even more spiritual energy. As expected, this method was much better than blindly waiting for spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in her body slowly became abundant. Time flowed by like water. The amount of spiritual energy increased, and her cultivation rose little by little. 3rd level, 4th level, 5th level, P. Her chest suddenly suffered a heavy blow. Zhu Yao's breathing became unstable, and her old bones were almost shattered. When she opened her eyes, she saw a green ball tightly stuck to her chest. The hell, which bastard threw a ball at her while she was meditating? Did he not know how to respect the old and cherish the young? P. That green ball suddenly moved, and let out a clear single word. Zhu Yao was shocked, and had almost lost her grip on the ball. After taking a closer look, why did it look a little familiar? P. It called out once again. P. Zhu Yao was startled. Only then did she recall that the P she placed in the spiritual energy gathering formation. When she turned to look, as expected, it had disappeared. It couldn't be, right? She had merely meditated, and it had already grown so big. Wasn't it a little too nutritious? P. That gigantic P lightly called out once again. Looking at its size, it was much bigger than the 4 Ps in the P earlier. What should she do now? Oh right, she had to give it a name. She could only take on a human form with a name. Cool, I say, Green P. In the future, you'll be called P, alright? P. That P resolutely replied. P. Nothing happened. The hell? What happened to the promise of taking on a human form after giving it a name? This didn't make sense. Could it be that her naming posture was wrong? Let's do it again. Pclip.bean.tofu.joker. Alright then. There was no reaction at all. Clearly, they were both born from a P, so why couldn't this one take on a human form? Zhu Yao picked up the green P ball. She flipped it left and right. Other than growing a little fatter, there wasn't much of a difference. P. It called out again, and then rolled into her embrace. As though it was tired, not even a moment later, it completely stopped moving. Slowly, it shrunk back to the size of a fist. Zhu Yao faintly felt that something was amiss. However, her current cultivation was still too low, and she had yet to cultivate her divine sense. She was basically unable to investigate the pea situation, so she could only give up and keep the pea. Just as she was about to inspect the formation, she continued to cultivate, she suddenly heard a few cries of shock from outside. She could even faintly hear the sounds of flustered footsteps. What happened? She opened the door, and looked at little Nkayan who was running towards her. She looked too similar, so she couldn't tell them apart. Grandma, the heavenly fire is here. The girl pointed to the sky with a flustered look. Zhu Yao raised her head to look, only to see a sea of flames in the sky. A red formation was currently spinning in the sky, and with every passing second, the flames grew brighter. A fire-guiding formation. An elementary fire-type mystic art. The formation wasn't big, but it was facing her house. Grandma, let's hurry and leave this place. The heavenly fire is about to burn down. As expected, in the next moment, the flames descended from the sky, and flew straight towards her house. The hell, it can't be, right? Her property, her boss account. Zhu Yao was startled. She cast an art with her hands, and a formation formed. A triangular formation, in the instant the flames were about to reach, enveloped the top of the house. She had already lost her face, so she couldn't lose her property as well. There's actually a spiritual monster that knows mystic arts. A tender voice resounded in the sky. A child dressed in an extremely exquisite outfit was currently standing on top of a feather mystic artifact, staring at her with a curious look. His two hands, which had just finished casting an art, had yet to be put down. She knew where the fire-guiding formation came from. This devilish child. Hey, what kind of monster are you? The devilish child pointed at her, and said with a smug look. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. This little wimp looked to be around 7 or 8 years old. He actually dared to set fire to the forest at such a young age, he sure was a bear. I have never seen a spiritual monster that knows mystic arts. Tell me your name, and I'll take you in as my pet. Little Wimp rubbed his nose, and said with a benevolent tone. Who wants to be your pet? Zhu Yao took a deep breath, and suppressed the anger in the depths of her heart. Little friend, burning someone's house is wrong. Hurry and go home. Be careful, or I will spank your buttocks. The child flew down from the sky, and said seriously. If you become my pet, I'll go home. Although you're a little older, no, a lot older, as long as you run faster, you'll be fine. As long as you run faster, I won't despise you. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. How could there be such a child that needed a spanking? Ho ho. I'm not going to be your pet. Spiritual monsters had their own pride as well. Zhu Yao couldn't be bothered to bicker with him. This child was only at the 5th level of essence, and that fire-guiding formation earlier consumed a lot of spiritual energy. She was not worried that he would do it again. Wait a minute. I'm serious. The child grew anxious, and chased after her. Little Nkayan seemed to be extremely afraid of him, and hurriedly leaned towards her out of fear. Grandma. So you're called Grandma. Little Wimp's face was filled with surprise. I know now. What do you know now? Zhu Yao turned around. He had already begun to cast an art, and a formation was instantly formed. At the center of the formation, there was even a faint contract inscription. She had seen this inscription once before, back then when her master had Sesame form a contract with her. The hell, this little wimp wanted her to be his summoned beast. No wait, it was a summoned spirit. Chapter 272. That contract formation had already flown toward her, instantly binding her up like a chain. The contract rune in the middle also floated up and tunneled into the center of her forehead, as though it wanted to forcefully invade her divine sense. Zhu Yao was startled. She instinctively wanted to resist, however, she was basically unable to stop the mystic pattern from entering. Just as the mystic pattern was about to enter her divine sense, a golden light suddenly flashed from within her divine sense, instantly scattering the mystic pattern. She suddenly thought of the divine sense imprint that her master had placed on her in the netherworld. Tower Master Yumian had said that there could only be one divine sense imprint. The child stared blankly, as if he didn't expect that the contract would be destroyed. The fury in Zhu Yao's heart surged out in an instant. This devilish brat actually dared to act forcefully. If a tiger doesn't show its might, do you think I'm dumb? Kid, come here. You're willing to be my pet. Then why aren't you kneeling? He pointed at the ground arrogantly. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. She pulled that devilish brat over, and pressed him onto her thigh. Casting an art to stop his movements, she aimed at his little buttocks, and smack 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 smack. You're so young, yet you don't learn good things, running around and setting fires. Don't you know that it will cause a forest fire? You want me to be your pet? Don't you know what manners and respect your elders are? The child was stunned for a moment and began to struggle with all his might. Let me go, you old monster. Ha, look at my bad temper. Zhu Yao smacked him even harder. When Xiongzi saw that he couldn't struggle, the corners of his mouth flattened and he began to cry, Wow, you bully me. You're a disrespectful old man, you're a bad person, wah. Hey, who was bullying who first? Don't cry. No. I want to cry, I just want you to be my pet. He cried even harder. You think you're in the right? Zhu Yao sighed. Just who in the world raised this little tyrant? If you cry again, I'll beat you again. With a wave of her hand, Zhu Yao materialized a wind blade and struck onto the gigantic boulder several meters away. In an instant, the boulder was split into two, and she coldly glared at him. Little tyrant took a breath. Sure enough, he was frightened. He looked at her in horror, and his tears were about to fall. Only then did Zhu Yao retract her hand, and help little tyrant up. His face darkened. Tell me, what's your name? Where are you from? Why did you set fire to my house? To deal with this kind of little tyrant, one had to be more tyrannical than him. Answer me properly, or I'll beat your ass until it blossoms. Whoa whoa. His face was pale. She bit her lips tightly, looking like she wanted to cry but didn't dare to. Moss. Father, save me. No one here can save you. Hurry up and say it. The devilish brat really needed a lesson. Only then did he start to speak while sobbing, Xiao. Xiao Bai, junior martial sister Chu Yi, likes it. That's why I'm here. What nonsense was this? You said your name is Xiao Bai. There's something here that your junior sister likes. Is that why you're here? Zhu Yao guessed. Yes. He nodded, trying to hold back his tears. Oh, I couldn't tell. How old was he? He already knew how to give gifts to a girl. Zhu Yao sighed, and squatted down to look at his little face at eye level. Little friend, it's true that you're looking for something to give to your little companion, but why did you have to set the fire? Fortunately, the house you burned was mine. If it was someone else's house, what if there's a little friend like you in there? But you're spiritual monsters. That's right, we're spiritual monsters. But do spiritual monsters deserve to die? This child's way of teaching was really problematic. She really wanted to have a chat with the adults in his family. His little brows frowned, and weakly refuted. But Master said that spiritual monsters aren't humans, and they're all very weak. Even if they die, it doesn't matter much. Then do you think I'm weak? He strongly shook his head. Look, I'm a spiritual monster as well. Zhu Yao solemnly said. There are indeed strong and weak in this world, but being weak doesn't mean you can decide the other party's life and death. We have already cultivated into human forms, and that means we're humans. Just like you, we can cry, laugh, and feel pain. If you can bully others just because you're strong, then if I kill you today, doesn't that mean you deserve to die as well? His face instantly turned as pale as snow, and he could no longer hold back his tears as they flowed down. He was young, and did not know what death meant. However, he recalled the rock that was split into two earlier. For a moment, he was trembling out of fear. Zhu Yao's heart instantly softened. No matter what, he was still a child. As long as he was taught well, he could change. All right, don't cry anymore. She reached out her hand to stroke his head. His entire body stiffened, and only when he realized that she did not make any other movements did he finally relax. Zhu Yao helped him wipe his tears. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I'm just making an example. Really? Really? You're not going to spank me anymore. Not anymore. Only then did his tears turn into a smile, and he forcefully rubbed his nose. Then I won't capture you to be my pet anymore. Then are you still going to kill spiritual monsters in the future? Not anymore. He strongly shook his head. My butt will hurt. In the end, you only remember my butt. But what about the thing Junior Marshall Sister Chu Yi wants? His little face once again frowned. If I don't find it, will she stop playing with me? It seemed like his relationship with that little childhood friend of his was pretty deep. Even though he was crying like this, he was still concerned about her. What are you looking for? The treasure of Tranquil Valley. He said with a serious face. Junior sister said that there is a treasure in Tranquil Valley and she really wants it. That's why I came. His clue couldn't possibly be just this sentence, right? What's that treasure called? Where exactly is it? What is it used for? Little Tyrant pondered for a moment, and then shook his head. Junior Marshall's sister didn't say. If he didn't say anything, then why the hell are you looking for him? All right, it was indeed the behavior of a child. Then I'll wait for you to investigate before looking for him. But Junior Sister Chu Yi's birthday is tomorrow, he said anxiously. You can give other gifts. Zhu Yao suggested. What gift? Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. Girls usually like flowers. If you send flowers, she will definitely like it. Really? Little Tyrant's eyes shone, as he suddenly turned to look at little Nkayan at the side. Do dandelions count as flowers? Little Nkayan's whole body trembled, and she was about to cry. I told you, those that have turned into spirits won't do. Zhu Yao pinched his little face. After you leave the valley, look for those that bloom brightly. Find a few of each color, then gather them into a bunch and give them to that little Junior Marshall sister of yours. She will definitely like it. Little Tyrant pondered for a moment. Then, he nodded, looking as though he was eager to try. All right. I'll listen to you. Then hurry and go. Zhu Yao pushed his hand. Only then did Little Tyrant take out a feather mystic artifact and fly into the sky. Just as he was about to float away, he turned around and waved goodbye to her. Grandma, I'm leaving. Thank you. Although you're ugly, you're a good person. Ugly. Unbearable child, come back here if you have the guts. After little tyrant left, little Nkayan lived in fear for many days. The moment she saw her, she would cry and complain about how terrifying humans were. She agreed with this point. After this incident, Zhu Yao realized that the self-protection abilities of the spiritual monsters were too weak. She had to think of a way to raise the combat standards of the entire population. Thus, she passed down the cultivation method to the eldest, little Qian, and had her tell the rest of the spiritual monsters to cultivate according to the method she taught them. Probably because the prestige of the wrinkles on her face was too high, the crowd of spiritual monsters actually did not have any suspicions, and followed her instructions. However, the results were minimal. The spiritual energy here was still unimaginably lacking. Zhu Yao faintly felt that there was something wrong with this so-called tranquil valley. However, after looking around, she could not find anything wrong with it. On the third day, little tyrant returned. Unlike the previous time when he set fire arrogantly, he was much more polite this time. He even waved his chubby little paws at her from afar. Grandma. He ran over with an excited look, his eyes were sparkling like stars. I followed your instructions and sent flowers to junior marshal sister Chu Yi. She really likes them. Grandma, although you're ugly, you're really amazing. Can you remove the word ugly? If not for the fact that you're a child, I would have already fallen out with you, hey. But. His joyful expression retracted. Junior Marshal's sister said that she still likes the treasures here more. How can there be any treasures here? Senior Marshal Uncle Chu said as well. He said seriously. He said that there should be a mystic artifact here that can open up, an umbrella. It's very, very big. He saw it last year. What the hell was an umbrella last year? Didn't she even buy a watch last year? Grandma. Little tyrant tugged onto the corner of her clothes with a hopeful look. Say. What else can I give junior marshal sister Chu Yi as a present? You still want to give her something. You're not a tyrant, you're a tycoon, right? Isn't her birthday already over? But. He pointed at his index finger, and said with a conflicted look. Junior Marshal's sister said that she really likes the things I give her, and hopes that she can receive them again. Alright, you're not a tycoon, you're a fool. Then what are you planning to give her? I can't destroy the pure friendship between children. I have many, many peachwood swords. He said with a confident look. This won't do. A little girl should like exquisite things, right? She entered the house, took out a wooden hairpin, and passed it to him. I'll give you this. You're giving it to me. He was a little stunned. Zhu Yao nodded. Hurry and go. Hurry and settle your childhood sweetheart. Stop bothering me. She still had to shine for the Dandelion family. Grandma. Little tyrant's eyes suddenly reddened. Like a little bull, he rushed into her embrace. Other than master, Grandma is the one who treats me the best. Xiao Bai will always remember Grandma. Even if I turn into ashes, I will still recognize Grandma. What was that last sentence? That was a little too scary, wasn't it? Alright, hurry and go. In the future, introduce your junior marshal sister Chu Yi to me. Zhu Yao stroked his head. Amen. Little tyrant said with a confident look. Only then did he float away on his feather. Phew, it was finally settled. She had to continue supervising the demons to improve themselves. However, she did not expect that on the second day, that annoying little demoness would float over again. However, this time, he had a long face. His little hands were clutching onto his chest, as he pitifully floated in front of her. Was she being pestered by a devilish child? Chapter 273. Grandma. He sniffed and tears flowed out. He weakly stretched out his two chubby paws, only to see a wooden hairpin that had been broken into two pieces in his palm. It was the one that was given to him yesterday. Zhu Yao frowned. Junior sister said that she doesn't want anything other than the Dharma artifacts in Tranquil Valley. He wiped his tears and said with an aggrieved expression, "Martial Uncle Chu even broke. Good girl, don't cry." Zhu Yao's heart instantly softened. Little Tyrant, however, felt even more wronged. He threw himself into her embrace, and began to wail. "Grandma, Little Bai broke your wooden hairpin. Are you not going to like Little Bai anymore?" Silly child, so this was what he was worried about. "No, if the wooden hairpin is broken, then it's broken. I'm not angry." "Really?" He looked up, his eyes brimming with tears. "It's true." Only then did he feel relieved. He sniffled to stop his tears and said in a complaining tone, "Uncle Master said that if I can't find the artifact, he won't let me see junior sister Chu-yi anymore." It was that mystic artifact again. This was the third time she had heard Little Tyrant mention it. She couldn't help but suspect Senior Uncle Chu's intentions. Perhaps they had been using this child from the very beginning. "Was it your martial uncle who asked you to find that celestial artifact?" "Yes." He nodded. Zhu Yao frowned even deeper. "Then why doesn't your senior martial uncle come looking for you himself? Instead, he forced a child." "Because martial uncle can't come in," he said matter-of-factly. "What do you mean I can't get in?" Little Tyrant took 2 steps forward, and pointed to the sky. "There's a barrier up there. Other than Little Bai, no one else can enter." "Block it." "Barrier." How could she not know? "Little White, lend me your flying artifact." "Oh." He obediently took out the feather. Bringing him along, Zhu Yao flew up, and floated in midair. Only then did she realize that the place she was at was a very large narrow valley. It was about 50 kilometers wide, and the entire place was enveloped within a barrier. After careful observation, this barrier should be some kind of restriction. It seemed to be specially used to restrict human cultivators. However, for some reason, Little Tyrant was able to come and go freely. Zhu Yao returned to the surface. The barrier was obviously there to protect the monsters inside. From the looks of it, Uncle Master Chu must have known that Little White could enter and exit the cave. That was why he kept asking him to come in to look for things under the guise of his junior sister. He actually used the pure friendship of a child. How despicable. Favorable impression points towards martial Uncle Chu -100. However, just what was that mystic artifact that Little Tyrant was talking about? Little Tyrant. Little White, do you know what kind of magic tool your martial uncle asked you to find? It's an umbrella, a very, very big umbrella. What kind of umbrella? Do you know? I know. He nodded, lowered his head, and took out a scroll from the storage bag beside him. Uncle Master was afraid that I would forget, so he drew it for me. The preparations were quite complete. Zhu Yao took it and unfolded it to take a look, only to see a large, lifelike, and gently colored, veil. How was this an umbrella? This was clearly a patterned tent. Why do I feel that this patterned tent is a little familiar? Damn, wasn't this the one hanging in her room? Why did his martial uncle want her tent? No wonder it had a special nickname. Little White, how old is your martial uncle? Ah. He was startled, and then began to count with his fingers. 100. 200. 300, stinky face. Although he coveted the old granny's tent, follow me. Zhu Yao pulled Little Tyrant's hand, and walked towards her own room. She turned around and entered her bedroom. She had to take a closer look. The moment little Tyrant saw the veil by the bed, his eyes instantly shone. An umbrella. That's a patterned tent. He ran over and said, "Grandma, so the umbrella is yours." "It's a patterned tent." "Grandma, why did you hang the umbrella on the bed? Will it rain at night?" "I already told you that's a patterned tent." Why couldn't he forget about the umbrella? "Whatever, an umbrella it is then." Zhu Yao returned the scroll in her hands to him. "Take a look. Is this the mystic artifact you're looking for?" Little Tyrant carefully looked at the scroll, and then looked at the colorful veil. He nodded heavily. "Yes, this is it." Zhu Yao took a closer look at the veil, and realized there were faint ripples of spiritual energy coming from it. Although it was very faint, it was indeed spiritual energy. Furthermore, it looked colorful in the past, but now, it had turned into a faint green color. She reached out her hand to touch it, and realized it had a soft texture, and it was even a little sticky. This feeling. Why did it feel so similar to the layer of barrier outside? "Little Tyrant, let's go up and take a look." "Grandma, I'm called Xiao Bai, I don't mind such details." Zhu Yao kept the patterned tent, and pulled little Tyrant out. She picked up the feather in his hand, threw it into the air, and once again flew up. Zhu Yao carefully inspected the barrier on top of it. As expected, it was exactly the same as the one in her hand. The only difference was that the barrier was transparent, while hers was a faint green color. Furthermore, there was spiritual energy floating above the barrier as well, though its attribute could not be seen. She took a deep breath, and carefully reached out her hand to press on the barrier. However, she simply passed through it, and in an instant, a large amount of spiritual energy crazily entered her body. Her dantian, which was empty earlier, was instantly filled to the brim, and she could barely maintain her figure. In her mind, the sound of something breaking through resounded, and her cultivation instantly rose explosively. She wanted to retract her hand, but she was basically unable to move at all. "Grandma." Little Tyrant was shocked as well. He took over the control of the flying mystic artifact, and anxiously pulled her. However, he was unable to move her at all. In a moment of desperation, he casually pushed her through the barrier, and brought her outside. The influx of spiritual energy had stopped, but the rampaging of her body was still intensifying. Countless chaotic spiritual energy filled her entire body. Various bloody scars had already appeared on her body, and in less than a moment, she had turned into a bloodied person. "Grandma! Grandma, are you all right?" Little Tyrant cried from anxiety. Most likely, this was the first time he had seen such a terrifying bloodied person. Due to worry and fear, his tears began to fall. Zhu Yao desperately suppressed the spiritual energy in her body, and squeezed out a few words with gritted teeth. "Bring me back to a safe place." She needed to meditate and digest the spiritual energy in her body. A safe place. Safe. Little Tyrant frantically thought for a moment, and then heavily nodded. "All right." Then, he rode the feather and brought her towards the distant floating mountain. "Wait a minute, where are you going?" She meant to bring her back. "Hey! Why are you running away?" Unfortunately, she no longer had the strength to resist. She was already a bag of old bones in the first place, and now that the various chaotic spiritual energy was rampaging about, she was about to suffocate. Little Tyrant swiftly flew the entire way, and with his fastest speed, he brought her into a small courtyard. Zhu Yao was about to lose consciousness from the pain. Using all of her strength, she finally sat down with her legs crossed, and forcefully entered a meditative state. She wouldn't have known if she hadn't seen it, but the moment she saw it, she nearly scared this baby to death. Her body was filled with all sorts of colors. Red, blue, gold, yellow, green. There were all sorts of spiritual energy, and it was about to become a hot pot. Furthermore, these spiritual energy were scattered all over the place, and they were currently violently rushing into her meridians. This was the sign of a big spring cleaning. Zhu Yao took a deep breath and calmed her heart. First, she carefully separated every single spiritual energy, and separated them according to their colors. Then, she sorted out the various types of spiritual energy of the same color, and arranged them in a row. Then, she guided them into her dantian. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, ice. What the hell is that transparent thing? Why is there a transparent spiritual energy, hey? Isn't this increasing the difficulty of the game? Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. Forget it, let's just group them together then. Otherwise, she would really explode and die from the spiritual energy in her meridians. As she guided the 5 elemental spiritual energy and the mutated spiritual energy into her dantian, she carefully separated out the unique transparent spiritual energy. However, she realized that the transparent spiritual energy was very little. It was only about 1% of the other spiritual energy. She did not dare to easily guide this unknown spiritual energy into her dantian either. Who knew if it would cause an allergic reaction or something? She could only temporarily store it in her meridians. Most of her mental energy was used to separate the spiritual energy. The 5 elements countered each other, and the initially violent spiritual energy immediately became quiet and obedient the moment it was separated. With a little guidance, it could then enter her dantian in an orderly manner. There was no strange reaction in her dantian, and it did not cause any backlash. This could only prove that her old character this time was a trash pentaspirit veins holder. Oh, that's not right. There was also the ice, thunder, and wind spirit veins holder. This was the second all-element character she had encountered after entering the dragon race. Separating the spiritual energy was an extremely time-consuming and laborious task. She could not even feel the flow of time. A large portion of the spiritual energy had already been separated by her, but a new problem arose. Her dantian was full. She was stuffed again. This was the tempo of building her foundation. However, on one side was her exploding dantian, while on the other was her meridians that were mixed with various spiritual energy. If she were to build her foundation now, at the same time her dantian expanded, the spiritual energy inside would also go berserk. If both sides were to explode at the same time, she would not be able to suppress it. However, if she were to not build her foundation, she would either die from the berserk spiritual energy shattering her meridians, or die from the shattering of her dantian. Either way, she would still die. The hell, realm spirit tortoise, you bastard. What kind of lousy character did you give her? I'm going to die no matter what. Hell, I'm going all out. Zhu Yao composed herself, and immediately built her foundation. She guided the separated spiritual energy into her dantian at 10 times the speed. An immense pain instantly engulfed her entire body. Her dantian began to expand outwards, and the abundant spiritual energy inside began to move restlessly as well. Even the spiritual energy outside, as though it had been injected with chicken blood, began to crazily squeeze in. And the chaotic spiritual energy in her meridians, having lost control, began to rampage about in her meridians in an even more frenzied manner. A few moments later, she could no longer feel a single complete meridian. It wasn't just a broken bone, it was a comminuted fracture. Boundless pain engulfed her entire body, and it was so painful that even her consciousness was beginning to blur. Boundless pain engulfed her entire body, and it was so painful that even her consciousness was beginning to blur. Chapter 274. She could no longer squeeze out a single strand of energy, and the thought of changing to another avatar faintly rose in her mind. The prerequisite was that she had to first beat up Realm Spirit when she returned. Just when her consciousness was about to completely disappear, suddenly, that unknown transparent spiritual energy which had been quietly staying in her meridians for a long time began to circulate in her meridians. What was even more miraculous was, wherever it went, all of the spiritual energy would calm down. It automatically began to arrange itself according to color. Zhu Yao and her little companion were all dumbfounded. They could only watch as that transparent spiritual energy, like a captain, instantly pacified the rioting in her meridians. Even the commotion in her dantian had calmed down quite a bit. In the next moment, she felt as though there was a bang in her mind, and the sound of something being broken. She succeeded in building her foundation. What a godly turn of events! Just what kind of godly object was that transparent spiritual energy? After building her foundation, that transparent spiritual energy did not stop. Instead, it began to slowly circulate in her meridians. Wherever it flowed, the meridians which were injured by the spiritual energy would begin to automatically recover. The separated spiritual energy then entered her dantian in an orderly manner. After an unknown period of time, the meridians in her body had finally completely recovered. After her cultivation level had increased, her meridians had become even wider. She even felt that her old bones had become much stronger. Zhu Yao took a deep breath. Sensing the vitality in her body that was different from before, she then opened her eyes. What she saw was a pair of puffy eyes which were filled with hot tears. "Grandma!" Little Tyrant sniffled, and fiercely rubbed his eyes. "You're finally awake." It seemed like she had given him a huge fright. Zhu Yao's heart softened, as she stroked his little head. "Good boy. Grandma, you've already slept for an entire day and night," he said with a wronged look. "I didn't even dare to go out and play with Chu Yi. Fortunately, you're awake, and I can go out again." "So that's what you were worried about, hey? Where is this?" Only then did she notice her surroundings. This was an ordinary room. There weren't many things, but it was very tidy. "This is my house," Little Tyrant replied. "Your house?" The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Little Tyrant was a practitioner, then his house was Nesh-Chazerei sect. Little Tyrant proudly puffed out his chest. "Damn you!" She was a dandelion spirit, and the relationship between cultivators and spirits in this world wasn't harmonious or friendly at all, okay? He actually brought her into a deity sect so brazenly. Zhu Yao felt stifled in her heart. He stood up immediately. "No, I have to leave quickly. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died." "Shall Bai." A deep male voice came from outside, and the door was pushed open with a creak. "It's over. What did you get?" A solemn-looking man in a green robe stepped into the room and was stunned. "Zhu Yao. You." The man's face was filled with shock, as he looked straight at Zhu Yao. Zhu Yao panicked in her heart, as she began to crazily scroll through various recipes in her mind. Stir-fried dandelions, steamed dandelions, boiled dandelions. I wonder what kind of posture I should use to escape, which would make me look more cool. Spare my life. Hero, wife, what? What did you just call me? Wife. The man's demeanor suddenly changed, as he pounced towards her and hugged onto her thigh. With snot and tears flowing down his face, he complained. "You're finally willing to see me. Your husband has waited for you for so long, you've finally come out." Flips table. What kind of plot is this, hey? Warrior, who are you? Did you take the wrong script? I'm someone with a boyfriend, Hurry and let go of my thigh, hey. Wife. However, like an octopus, he tightly hugged onto her thigh. I was wrong, I was really wrong. I shouldn't have despised that graceful figure of yours, those enchanting wrinkles, and that sexy skin of yours. Even if you're so old that you can't even look human. No, you can't even look like a dandelion, I will still love you. Are you sure you're not scolding me? Return to my side, wife. I will never make you angry again. The ghost wants to return. Who are you? It's fine if you don't acknowledge me, I will always be waiting for you. I love you, my wife. Wife, your sister. Who's your wife? Let go of me, hey. No, I'm never going to leave you again. My heart can't be turned from a rock. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. A rock can't be turned, you can scram. She could no longer hold it in, as she raised her leg and kicked him. That man, however, still had a resolute look, as he looked at her with deep emotions. Hit me, wife. As long as this can make you feel a little better, please don't carelessly ravage me. Who wants to ravage you? Don't say such shameless words in such a righteous manner, hey. What if the Grand Master misunderstands? Senior Martial Ant. Little Tyrant looked at the man with a confused look, and then looked at Zhu Yao. Grandma. Don't look at me, I don't know what's going on either. Why isn't there even an explanation for the storyline? Junior Martial Nephew bye. The man crawled up from the ground, and patted on Little Tyrant's head. With a grateful look, he said. You've done too well. Initially, I had thought that you would at most take away my wife's umbrella wings. I never expected that you would directly bring her out. You really are Senior Martial Ant's good Junior Martial nephew. Little Tyrant's face reddened. I didn't do anything either, Grandma, no, I have to call her Senior Martial Ant in the future. Hey. Zhu Yao pulled Little Tyrant back. She's still alive, don't make decisions on your own. Just who in the world are you? Wife. The man's eyes reddened. Are you still unwilling to forgive me? Little Tyrant raised his head as well. Senior Martial Ant, just forgive Senior Martial Ant. Forgive my ass, I don't even know him. The man felt even more wronged. Wife, as expected, you still won't forgive me. Grandma. How can you be so heartless, so unjust? Zhu Yao, what's with this suffocating feeling of being unable to reason with her? She would rather be steamed, fried, or stir-fried. Stop. Zhu Yao slammed the table with force. With a loud bang, the table was instantly smashed into pieces. The two of them were startled, and the place instantly quietened down. She took a deep breath, calmed down the irritable and murderous emotions in her heart, and said with a heavy tone. Can we talk properly? The corner of the man's lips moved, as though he wanted to say something. Wife. Shut up. Oh. He immediately squatted back down. Zhu Yao felt her head aching a little. She took a deep breath. Firstly, I don't know you, nor have I ever seen you before. I can't possibly be your wife. Secondly, I already have a man, and that person isn't you. Do you understand? The man was startled, and his face instantly turned as pale as snow. With a look of disbelief, he said. You have someone else behind my back. Little Tyrant threw a dissatisfied look over as well. Behind your back, your sister. Don't automatically ignore the first point, hey. This was the first time in her life that Zhu Yao felt communicating with someone was so difficult. Alright, let me rephrase my question. What's your mother's surname, and what's her name? How did you two meet? She definitely did not believe that Realm Spirit would give her a married avatar. Otherwise, she would spray salt soda all over his face. Wife, what's wrong? Could it be that you're injured? You've even forgotten your own name. Debater, please answer me directly. Don't change the topic. The man was startled, and then replied. Naturally, your surname is Zhu. Zhu Yao took a deep breath. What's your name? Yao. She felt her vision turning dark. The man nodded with certainty. Zhu Yao. Don't you know that panting while speaking can scare people to death? Zhu Yao heaved a sigh of relief. According to the naming convention of the Dandelion clan, it was completely normal for her to have a sister who looked exactly the same. I'm now certain that you've mistaken me for someone else. That's impossible, he said with a determined look. Even if I've mistaken someone else, it's impossible for me to mistake you. Your enchanting wrinkles and slightly hunched figure are the one and only beauty in this world. Wrinkles. Hunched. Old Zhu Yao was stabbed twice. Thank you. She had only heard of pedophiles, but this time, she actually saw an old man. Wife. He looked as though he was about to cry. What's wrong? I'm your beloved husband, Choo Choo. Cricket, I'm a big brother. I say, big brother. Zhu Yao took a step forward and patted on the infatuated man's shoulders. I understand your feelings. I'm Choo Choo. It's all the same. Come, let us talk about life. Zhu Yao spent 3 hours to explain, from scientific, technical, and emotional perspectives, the characteristics of the dandelion species, the number of seeds a single dandelion can bear, the genetic characteristics of twins and multiple births. The world being so big, there would definitely be a few idiots who look like you, the research on the diversity of the aging population, and many other aspects. The conclusion she came up with was, you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm a pure young lady, don't look at me with the eyes you look at your wife. You can just scram. And the conclusion student Choo Choo gave was, impossible. Wife, you're definitely lying to me. Zhu Yao, that if not because you're handsome, do you believe that I would have beaten you up? In the end, Zhu Yao had no choice but to tell him about how Qianqian and Qianqian all looked exactly the same. With little Tyrant as a witness, his resolute expression finally loosened a little. You, really aren't my wife? Yes, yes. Zhu Yao nodded. He looked as though he had suffered a life injury, and his entire person was listless. Raising his head, he glanced at her old face. There's actually someone who looks so similar to my wife. Letting go of the word beautiful, it was already outdated. With the misunderstanding cleared, Zhu Yao also understood that the reason why Choo Choo sent Little Bai to Tranquil Valley was to look for his wife. And that unique light muslin was a part of her original form. The transportation tool that the dandelion used to float around was really an umbrella. She had initially planned to return, but the barrier outside Tranquil Valley was too strange. The last time she passed through it, she had almost lost her life. If she were to return this time, it was uncertain what would happen. She suddenly realized that she had no home to return to. How about this, girl? Choo Choo suggested. Although you're not my wife, at the very least, you have a huge relationship with her. Don't worry, I will take care of you in the future. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.